thinking. So
well, and that's kind of my thing, because years ago, the perception of homeschool
was way different.
And it tends to be, and I don't want to say it's going mainstream, but it's becoming more popular as an option. And there are many different reasons why that happens. For a lot of parents, it deals with curriculum, but it's becoming more and more about the social emotional part, the things that are going on in schools, that it seems, at least from my perspective, what I've experienced is that not so much parents, but teachers and administrators feel hamstrung in what they can and cannot do to deal with those things, like the bullying stuff. And so, what we were talking about earlier, there are certain guidelines that have to be followed. So there's an anti-bullying law, but it's left to the districts to determine their policy and how they handle that. So by law, there has to be an investigation. And within that investigation, there people get questioned, the parties get questioned, parents are notified, they stay away from each other, and they have a certain amount of time that they have to put that process out. You guys would be surprised how many administrators don't know that law.
Or how many don't use it.
And they don't use it, because when I was on the interview committee for APs at my school I'm currently at 2 years ago, we interviewed 6 people, and only 2 of them ever mentioned the law about bullying. Because we asked them, one guy literally said, well, I would always carry candy in my pocket, and I would go find that student and pull him out of class and stand out in the hall, and I'd like, hey, do you want a candy?
Sorry, I don't want you.
And I'm sitting there in this interview.
Do you know fentanyl's an issue?
And I'm sitting,
and red dye 40 in it.
I mean,
a dog. It's a childhood dog.
And so I'm sitting there listening to this. I'm looking around the panel, looking for reactions, because I'm a people watcher. I'm looking for reactions, and I'm thinking, are these people as dumbfounded as I am? Like, are you handing out, caramel candies, Miss Butterworth,
like grandma,
or that church candy, the strawberry candies, and so he leaves, and at the end of the interview, he literally said, I'm sorry, I was so nervous. I'm not really good at interviewing, and I'm thinking, I hope and pray that I'm not that bad when I interview. And this guy's an administrator.
That's crazy.
And I mean, and these are,
and you wonder why they hide from parents.
Well, yeah, I mean, the other day at school, we had kids walking around. There were more people walking the halls than there are walking around in a mall on a daily basis shopping. And there's 5 administrators standing around, and nobody's saying a word.
Yeah, get your ass back in class.
Exactly. I mean, I just don't. That's why I hang out in room B305. And I do my job. Coach, what if there's a fight down the hall? I'm like, man, I hope it works out for him.
I'm sure I'll see the video of it later.
Yeah, that's what I'll say. Like,
I know for sure I'm not getting punched.
Like, Coach, did you hear about that fight in the cafeteria? I'm like, no, anybody got video?
Yeah,
let me see it.
Videoed it.
I know you got video.
Let me see it. Because
did any of you guys step in? Nope, but I know you videoed it.
And they stood around and said, ooh.
Yeah.
They do. And so at least in my class we had those conversations. I mean, and I've seen more and more people, and I've talked to some parents that are transitioning to homeschool because, again, before COVID, they were the nerdy kids.
Yep.
That was a perception, and the parents were, they're hippies. They're 70. They were probably, on psychedelics in the 70s.
Chicks with hairy armpits.
Yeah.
That was last week's episode.
Yeah.
Chicks with hairy armpits.
I'm sure Ashley doesn't have hairy armpits.
No.
I'm positive.
There's not much hair on this body.
But,
All on my head.
But it's like when we were texting today, and, you find out we had like 8,500 messages on there. And we talk about, as more people are pulling their kids out, in your experience, for sure, it's not just in one school district. It's not unique to one school district. Bullying is going on everywhere, and it's because of these damn things right here. We had 2 kids commit suicide back in the fall, and we're not instructed not to talk about it, but it's kind of understood. Like,
we're not going to talk
be
about
hush hush, and I'm like, in my class we're going to talk about it.
Right.
We talk about it here
because the kids need to hear. They need to hear adults talking about it because. Again, we're watching the Bourdain episode on Rome, and I told the kids, They go, Coach, you keep talking about him in the past tense. I'm like, well, yeah, he hung himself.
Yeah.
And they're like,
It's the truth.
and they're like, what?
Or
And I
he
said,
was murdered.
yeah. I said, yeah, he in a hotel in Paris.
Clinton.
They were filming an episode on Paris, and he didn't show up for brunch, and they went and found him. I said he talked for a long time about his mental health issues. I said, but we don't do a good job of talking about that here. I said, so, typically, I said, you guys know, look at what happened last fall. One in particular about bullying from social media was a cause, allegedly. And I've heard from some students in my classes the things that were said to her. Like, you should just kill yourself.
So sad.
And
So
kids
sad.
don't know how to cope with that.
No.
And if you're, how old are your kids again? What grade?
They just finished 7th, 6th, and 3rd.
And I see, for me, and you've been homeschooling them how long?
2 years. We
2
just
years.
finished 2 years.
So I saw your video you posted of them out in the pool.
Yeah.
Those are happy kids.
Yeah.
And they're more grounded now, aren't they?
Oh yeah, for sure.
And for Terry here, he's got kids moving up in the system.
Going to 6th, 3rd, and 2nd.
Jesus.
Yeah, you're right behind mine.
So yours just finished at Dahlstrom? The first year, or going to Dahlstrom?
Going to Dahlstrom.
That's why he's here.
Probably here today.
Well, and
Counsel me. I'm not getting much counsel right now, I tell you.
but what was their experience at Elm Grove like?
It was good. I mean, it was good because Elm Grove is kind of like the gem of the district. Really, I mean, it is.
Yeah.
Carpenter Hill's probably pretty solid as well, but
Carpenter Hill's pretty good.
Elm
They've
Grove,
had
I
good
think,
administrators.
Like, everybody wants to come teach at Elm Grove. You get a lot of parents that are engaged with their kids, that care about their education, and that can be kind of immersed in the school as well. And when you have parents' eyes that are in school, it's just a good check and balance. But, some of the schools on the east side, you're out of luck, man.
Yeah.
Well,
So Avery has no idea what awaits her going to Dahlstrom.
No, she doesn't, and that's middle schools are hard. Finding a good middle school is hard to find. And I'll say this about Elm Grove, because you guys know my story there. I mean, I have good experience with that school. When Kathy took over, it wasn't necessarily like that. I mean, kids did well there. Teachers wanted to work there because of the community and the parent involvement. But the leadership at that school wasn't all that great. There was a lot of narcissism involved from the leadership there. A lot of passive aggressive decisions, scowls. Not a very welcoming person. And then when Kathy took over, she totally changed the culture of that school.
Which culture is huge.
Yeah, and when she brought in the leader in me, and and then they just got that award, and she got recognized for that, which she deserves to do. But it made the school a family. Everybody became family, and that's been a criticism of whenever they leave Elm Grove and they go to Dahlstrom.
Yep.
Parents, I talk to parents. It's not the same. Why can't Dahlstrom be like Elm Grove? Why can't Kathy go be at middle school? I'm like, she don't want to be at middle school. Trust me, she's good at elementary, and my girls experience the same thing. And someone's asked me, what makes it hard? Like, you work in Seguin. What makes it hard there? I said, lack of parent involvement.
Yeah.
How we have Talking Points, which is an online messaging system where it just gives us a number and we can text parents. And I had this very thing happen the other day. I'm sending out messages about AP tests, sending out messages about my trips, and I had a parent reply, just too much.
It's called parenting.
Too much communication?
The messages. And I think
I'm sorry.
I think some parents kind of feel that way, and I'm just trying to
Having kids is overwhelming. I'm so sorry. Like,
called raising now.
yeah.
And I told her, I said, this is the method, this is the platform the district wants us to use, because at least in my school district, emails are hit or miss.
Yeah. Do you want me to print out a piece of paper and get buried in your kid's backpack?
Yeah. It's because if I email you, I never hear from you. I never hear from parents, and a lot of emails are bad.
Yeah.
So when I worked at another school, I think it was at Taylor High School, they had to provide a valid email address before they could finish registering, because it sent them a code. They had to validate their email address before they could finish registering. If you didn't send one, you couldn't type in like cornholio@gmail.com, which I use. That's just so you know, that's the email address I use when I go into a website and I'm looking if I'm researching something.
I have Eugene Tackleberry as mine.
Yeah.
Eugene Tackleberry at gmail.com.
From the Miller Lite commercials? Is that
from Police Academy.
No, Police Academy, yeah.
I'm being honest and giving my actual email.
And if I have to use a phone number, I just go to my phone and use any various 5,000 spam numbers.
Damn, that's what's been coming my way.
So I use that. And I mean,
hello, Mr. Cornholio. I've been getting that
I saw you were interested in our product.
Yeah, here's some cat facts.
Well, I got a text back from someone trying to provide funding for my business that I don't have. We sent you an email at cornholio@gmail.com. Did you get it? I was like, you're super funny. I hope Allah loves you. I mean, but I feel since we first met, my whole attitude, I've almost done a 180.
Since we first met?
Yeah.
Oh, really?
On account of what?
3 months ago, right?
Everything.
I've had that impact.
Well, it's
Actually scared you, didn't you?
Yeah. I scare a lot of people.
FAFO, right? We talked about that. No, I think, like, especially for public school educators, they feel like if I have people ask me these questions, they're challenging my not just my intelligence, but my expertise.
Right. It's an affront. It's always an attack. It's like, but it's not an attack.
But it's not an attack. And
Right.
and I got news for you. You know, I've been teaching 27 years. I'm not an expert. Look, I know what works for my kids. I know what works for my students, and being open and honest with them. And I do get complaints. I've had some teachers complain about me this year.
Good. You're not doing it right unless you're getting complained about.
Yeah.
You know, and instead of coming and talk to me,
Right.
you know, we had to have a meeting.
Yeah, it's got to be
Mediation
formalized,
meeting.
you know.
I'm
Yeah.
like, well, why can't we be adults? Just come and talk to me. It's like, hey, you're being an a-hole. So we heard you said this. Is this what you said? Yeah, this is what I said.
Yeah, double down. I'll
You
say
know,
it again.
and because a student recorded me.
Oh.
Yeah, which in and of itself is an issue.
Right.
Because I told my classes, I'm like, look, I'm not mad that someone did that, but understand you do that in a university setting, you will be expelled from the university, and a professor will bring charges on you.
Yeah.
Because
also
I've
depends
seen it.
on what state it's in.
Because I've seen it happen. I said, and Texas is a one party recording state. I said, but anyway, I just we see it as people want to feel like we're being challenged. Well, teachers are underpaid. Well, yeah, we are, but we also chose this. Do better. I mean, you subbed.
Yep.
You haven't subbed. Have you done?
Just ask you guys questions. Yeah.
So did you ever?
I
Did
I
you
don't
ever
think anybody
do?
wants that.
Did you ever do the program at Elm Grove with what were they?
The dads or whatever?
Yeah,
so I was signed up to do it, but then COVID came.
Dad's on duty.
Yeah.
What
yeah,
they had some
dogs.
Watch
Dogs.
Dogs.
Watchdogs.
Yeah.
Yeah,
That's
'cause
it.
they do it in dripping too.
Yeah, watchdogs.
Yeah. So I didn't do it because COVID came in right when I was signed up, and they said nope. So I was actually signed up to come read to the classroom that Friday, but then they shut it all down.
My daughters.
I was going to read All My Friends Are Dead, which if you guys have never read that book, it's fantastic.
That's why you didn't get to get
Yeah, that's why they shut it down.
Magically, COVID showed up.
my daughters would not let me sign up for watchdogs
Why?
because
A
I'm
little aggressive.
because I'm Daryl. I guess. No, it's like when their friends, because I'm their dad, but whenever they were younger and their friends come around, like, man, your dad's pretty cool. They're like, no, he's not.
Yeah.
He's weird.
Yeah.
My dad's weird.
I'm bracing myself to become really uncool to Avery, and they still want it. Now she's like, "Bring me lunch, and you can stay." And I'm like, can I bring you lunch next year? And she's, so
Well, and I told my students this because we were talking about we were talking about trips and signing up and get away from your parents, things like that. We're talking about other things in class and talking about our school dynamic because at the high school level, well, here's what you see: high parent involvement in elementary, and even in Hayes, even on the schools that aren't Elm Grove, there's really good parent participation.
Yep.
And it may not be equal across the board.
Well,
but,
and I will say it was more prior to COVID.
yeah.
Now, since COVID, like when I was, volunteering in my kids' school and subbing, I would look at the check-in sheet at the front office, and there'd be like 2 names for every few days. I'm like, are parents not showing up anymore? I'm like, yeah, since COVID, we can't get parents to show up.
Yeah. So I'd have the kids would complain, like, man, my parents are always on me about my grades and what I'm doing. And here I'm like, so I tell my classes, like, how many of y'all complain about your parents being on your case all the time? About 4 or 5 raise your hand. I say, keep your hands up, look around. I said, because a lot of the kids in here with their hands down wish their parents gave a crap and wish they'd be on their what about. I said, so keep that in mind. You're lucky. I said, my parents used to do the same thing, and I thank them for it.
Yep.
You're in a unique position because you're homeschooling your kids, and y'all been doing it for
2 years.
2 years.
Yeah.
So what have you seen that's been different in them since they transitioned from public schools to homeschooling?
Definitely like Avery's confidence has gone through the roof. She struggled a lot. She is a kid that if you give her a time frame on something, she shuts down, even though she will do it within that time frame in half that time frame. So she dealt with a lot of that in school. She dealt with a lot of bullying in school, mostly by boys. And so being at home, she's definitely more confident with herself. I've actually seen them be closer with each other. So in the when we were in public school, they got the worst of each other at the end of the day. They were exhausted. They didn't want to tolerate each other. So they're fighting and arguing and whatnot. And now they're like each other's built-in best friends. And so, there's times where if I have to go take a call, Avery will help Aiden with something, or Liam will help Avery with something. And so it's really helped them build their unit together. And Liam is my social butterfly. And it's funny because people will ask me, like, do you ever plan on putting them back in public school? I'm like, it's an option if they want. But even him being a social butterfly, he's like, I could go without it. Like, he gets more social activity outside of school than in school. Because he even hears from his friends, yeah, I see them in the hallway. I don't ever get to play with them. And so he's very much a kid. All 3 of my kids have looked at school as like work. Like that's their job. From the age of 5 till 18, that's their job. So they want to expedite that workforce as much as possible. And so they're the kids that sit down, do their work. Okay, now what else can I do? So they are definitely their grades. Liam, and Aiden have all A's. Avery had A+ in almost every class. Avery took French and Russian. Liam took Spanish. They did Bible basics, things like that. So they've excelled in their weak points, and then they're way advanced in their strong points. So
how much time are you? Because I think a lot of myself included, it's like, yeah, it'd be great if we could do this on a single income and I was capable of teaching. But I think those 2 things are an inhibitor, right? Because a lot of people say, well, we need 2 incomes, and the person who would stay home, in no way could I teach my kids. So how much time are you guys actually spending at home doing the homeschooling? And B, do you consider whoever is, in charge of teaching, do you feel like you're a capable teacher? Good enough to be doing, do you feel qualified to teach Russian?
So there's my father-in-law knows Russian, but there's a lot of programs. Duolingo is an app that they use, and then their program teaches like all the subject matters, and then they form sentences off of it. Qualifying, I always laugh at this because some public school teachers are like, you're not qualified to teach. I'm like, 200 of you just cheated on taking your state exam, so like you have room to talk. But time, we are done within 2 hours. It's funny how, and I'm sure you see it being a teacher, how the allotment a time that you have for something shouldn't take you that long to do. If you could get a kid to sit down and focus, it shouldn't take that amount of time. And there's a lot of busy work. There's crowd control when it comes to public schooling. We don't deal with any of that. And then, so like I am a full-time realtor. My husband works for the Austin Convention Center in IT. And so he telecommutes 1 day a week. And we typically start our day at 9 a.m. where they sit down and start doing their work. They are done by 11.
And they're learning through what medium?
So we learn, our math is through textbooks. So they're writing, it's through Math UC. Their science is through Apologia, so it's textbooks as well. Their English, we're basically reading and doing journal writing. So you learn so much just from reading.
You learn a lot.
Yes, they have.
And from journaling.
Yes. Yeah. And so we'll create subjects and, they'll write in a journal. And then they're doing their language through apps and stuff.
Yep.
And then we also have a program called Mia Academy that will do all our biblical studies through. We do history through. So and it's all related based off of their grade level. And I have it where they have to get an 85%. Otherwise, they retake that class.
And when it comes to their evaluation, math is a yes or no, right? Math is pretty objective, obviously. And sometimes racist, but math is pretty objective,
yes.
right? But when it comes to something like advanced writing or things like that, where you're like, hey, maybe that's not necessarily my strong suit. Are you able to outsource any of that stuff?
Yes, there's tons of tutors and stuff.
Well, outsource the evaluation of it. Hey, I'm going to send you my 3 kids. Whatever, their entries, and I want you to evaluate it as a professional.
Yes.
Send it to Daryl to evaluate.
That would not be wise.
For
the English
he's
part.
Only $5 an hour, so he's a
I would be paying you $5 an hour probably.
But to really develop them, maybe you're not the best at that. Like,
right.
hey, I'm gonna teach them in the areas that I'm best at.
Yes.
But when it comes to the evaluation, maybe I would be doing them a disservice if I'm the one. So is that type of service available to where
yes.
on down the line?
Yes. So the program that we have, Mia Academy, they have Mia Prep once they get to 8th grade. And so, yes, there are actual professors that you submit your work, they grade it and send it back to you and stuff. And a lot of programs have that. So.
What's the name of that program?
Mia Academy.
MIA?
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Mm-hmm. And so, there's plenty of that. There's tons of tutors where teachers that want to get in a tutor or also tutor on the side. They step in and help. There's a lot of them step in for dyslexia, things like that. Assistance that you're getting that you don't tend to get one-on-one in a public school environment.
And so you probably bought to them a core curriculum, right? And then maybe you added kind of the Bible element to it. So it really kind of allows you to truly customize what it is that you're doing for your kids.
Yes.
And then, as they get older, you're probably stepping out of your comfort zone a little bit,
right.
Calc 2, physics, things like that. And so then I imagine it just changes.
Yeah. Luckily, my dad is a history buff and a science wizard.
Yeah.
And then my father-in-law, he's very great at English and foreign languages. So they step into
but those resources are out there. How much does it cost you?
Oh, God, that's the funny thing when we talk about the vouchers and $2,000 for homeschool. I'm like, that doesn't cover anything. So, I say the program for each kid was $500 was Mia Academy for each kid.
A year, a semester?
A year.
Okay.
And then, of course, we have their Chromebook. Well, we don't have Chromebooks. We have different kind of books that we bought them some sort of. My husband's IT. He figured that out. And then, all their textbooks and stuff. It's probably, I'd say, close to $3,000 per kid.
Per year.
Mm-hmm.
I think that's such a valuable, this conversation, not just personally valuable for me, but it's such a roadblock for people that are disenchanted with the public route. They can't, charter school for whatever reason is not an answer. Private school, obviously not a reason, not a possibility for them because you're starting at $15,000 a year in a lot of cases. Charter school, they're still on the wait list. So homeschool is attractive, but the roadblocks being, I don't have the time. We're both full time. I don't know where to start.
Yeah.
That's a lot of it.
And it can
People
be really
don't know where to
overwhelming.
start. And they don't know where to,
I think the first year was that for me. And luckily I have a great group of people around me, which I could put you in touch with, that they were they've been doing it for years. This is what you need to do. Just get to the basics of it, And so the first year was finding our routine and whatnot. But I have several friends where both of the parents work in 8 to 5 and they okay, we're going to do your homeschooling when we get off of work.
Yep.
And so, or we're going to do it on the weekends. And so that is one thing that's beautiful about homeschooling. I have one that they travel all the time. And so they went to Sweden. And so they're we're going to buckle down and do work now and then take off for 3 weeks and come back and do our work again. So it allows you the flexibility of getting their education in. And you find it's the little amount of it makes such an impact on them. So
they're wrapped up by lunch every day. What are they doing the rest of the day?
They're making their own lunch.
For starters. So they're quite good at cooking at this point. So.
And then typically Avery, she's involved in a homeschool volleyball league. So she has her final game today. So she has practice on Thursdays in the middle of the day. Then she'll start her summer league where she'll have practices 2 days a week. Aiden does football training with his quarterback trainer, so he'll go to Crunch where he's getting his PE credits as well, and he'll go with his trainer and stuff. Aiden is involved in jiu-jitsu, and so they'll do that during the day as well. And there's a lot of programs out there like jiu-jitsu. There's one called Dino in San Marcos, very homeschool based. They know because they got to be open so many hours, they will open their gym for homeschool kids for free. I think it's on Fridays. So there's a lot of places to do where you could get your social activities, your PE credits and whatnot like that, and getting your kids out of the house. But we do a lot of meetups. So Tuesdays we get together with a group of people where our kids are all the same age. We'll go to the river and go swim. We'll go to a park. We'll go to...
Because that never sucks. Being able to go do it. See, and students would have to skip school to do that.
Right.
So, like, what your kids are getting to experience, was not the way it used to be. Because not every kid is like Tim Tebow. He was homeschooled. And he got a scholarship to the University of Florida to play quarterback. But here in Texas, we didn't have those programs.
Yeah.
And I would say nationwide, for the most part, I don't think programs like that really existed. So what you're describing is something that's a development over the last 5 to 7 years.
Well, yeah, I'm talking about like you
COVID.
don't know, like being an expert in certain areas. There's One Day Academy, which I believe is at your church, and they are like professors that go and they teach that subject for your kid. And so like if you don't know physics, you take your kid to that school one day and they learn and they get their work and then they come back and return it the next week.
And that's something that seems like it would become so crucial. And again, one of those roadblocks. I could teach my kid to read. I could teach my kid 2 + 2. But, man, once we get to physics, I'm out. So because I can't homeschool them in high school, I'm not going to homeschool them in elementary school, right? So it's just all these limiting beliefs that are out there that actually there's an answer for them. And when we were growing up, the homeschool kids were weird probably because there weren't all those resources.
Right.
So it really just was... the hairy armpitted lady that just had a lot of time on her hands and wasn't about, fighting the man. That's what she wanted to do, was fight the man or whatever the case may be. But now you do legit have communities of like-minded, truly like-minded
co-ops,
people.
There's all kinds of stuff.
There's a lot of co-ops. And when you send me that invite for the Hays County homeschool group.
Yeah, which I never thought I'd ever be an admin of that page.
Yeah, so I got in there, I introduced myself, and, some of the reactions were like,
They bring out the pitchforks.
There's like public school teacher, and I think there's probably a perception of like we bring in a public school teacher in this group. Oh my God, what's Ashleigh thinking? She's she's sniffing glue today or something. And she's not going to add somebody that she doesn't know because there's questions on there you have to answer.
Yes.
And so I spent some time when I got home that evening, kind of going down that rabbit hole of the posts in that group, and they're just normal people. And there's how many members? 3,500?
Yes.
There's a lot of members.
In Hays County. This Hays County group. Yeah.
And so there's a handful that are like super active. And, man.
That's only Hays County?
Yeah.
You have to answer if you're in Hays, and I vet you.
Yeah, she vets. And
she knows how.
But whenever you start to look at the post, man, it's a community of people sharing resources, asking questions. Hey, we're going to meet up on this day if you're free, and the thing with homeschool, and again, I'm 27 years in, and my perception of homeschool kids was like Mormon kids.
Yeah.
You don't.
There's anything wrong with Mormons.
You don't. No, there's nothing wrong with Mormons. You don't drink sodas.
Great friends that are Mormons.
Yeah, you don't drink sodas. You don't eat candy. You don't eat chips. Oh
Some
my God!
own a
Like
tequila
they're
company.
kind of the weird kids, but they're really not. I mean, when I start to look through there, and I notice, I like to look at the member list, and I notice people on there whose names I recognize, and several of them go to Vertical Chapel, and we've had conversations with a couple of them about doing the very same thing that you did because of bullying. There were boys bullying your daughter?
Yeah, physically putting their hands on her.
Oh, in 6th grade.
This was in 2nd grade.
2nd grade.
In Wimberley, right?
In 2nd grade. Yeah, so there was a boy in her class that punched her in the stomach, and I found out about it when she got home. So I waited until the end of the day to see. Clearly someone's going to reach out to me and tell me about this, and nobody did. So in my fashion, I sent an email addressing everybody, principal, vice principal, counselor, teacher, and I was like, which one of y'all was it your job to let me know about this? So the vice principal at the time, she's not there anymore, contacted me. She's like, it was my job. I'm sorry. It's been handled. I was like, okay. Well, granted, this was during COVID where we weren't allowed in the classrooms. or at school for that matter. And so I was told it was handled, trust it was handled. And then Avery started to develop habits of biting her nails down till they bled, complaining of stomach ache, trying to throw up before school. I was like, what is going on? Like, why aren't you wanting to go to school? She would never voice why she didn't want to go to school. So it took a social media post for me to post on Facebook. And it was like, I don't know what's going on. I'm needing guidance for my daughter. Like, she's not wanting to go to school. This is what she's dealing with and stuff. I had so many parents privately message me like, who's her teacher? And so I told them, like, she's the problem. It'll continue to be a problem until you remove her from that classroom. Well, that post got in the hands of the previous superintendent who called me. And he was like, we have a no bullying policy, which they say they have a no bullying policy. How much of that they investigate or do, I don't know. But he's like, she should have been removed from that classroom immediately. And I said, wait, why aren't you removing the bully? He went down this whole thing is like, well, the bully can't feel like they're being bullied. It's a whole thing.
Oh, my God.
And so I was like, so Avery has to move to a whole new classroom, meet new friends, meet a new teacher. And they said, yes, unfortunately, this is how it has to happen. I said, okay. So they moved her, never had an issue. She moved in February, finished that year, was fine. And then we moved her, she went over to JWE, which was the secondary school. Well, then the bullying went up a notch. And there was times where Liam would walk around the corner and see somebody putting their hands on her. And so once again, not get notified about it. And so I was like, I'm done. Like, I started subbing at the school, seeing what was going on. My mind was blown. I've said this before. Like, I felt like I wasn't safe. So I was like, I can't send my kids here. And so
this was in a Wimberley elementary school.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I mean, I'm really good friends with another parent that pulled her kid because of the bullying situation. So it's just, it doesn't really matter where you're at. It's just happening everywhere. And so, yeah, I went and said, well, Liam was about to go into middle school. And like I said, I'm the person I want to see with my own eyes what's going on. What I saw going on in that middle school, I was like, absolutely not. So I decided we're like finishing out his 5th grade year, and then we're homeschooling. So
middle school's tough.
It's the Hunger Games.
It is. It's Lord of the Flies.
It's just bad.
Yeah, making Terry feel better over there.
Yeah.
Well,
and like, do you attribute this more to, because, we ask parents who are at Dahlstrom, and, this has been their experience, and, that's cool. Do you attribute it more to the age?
Yes.
The school, kind of like, where does...
It's all
It's
of
all
it.
of
It's all
it.
of it.
Buckling up to where I'm not going to like my daughter for at least the next 3 years. 'Cause
Well,
she's just going to suck, but
well, and
limit the suck.
I will say homeschooling has helped that.
Yeah.
I can see that.
Yeah.
It's a lot, but the age.
Yeah.
Because boys and girls mature at different levels.
Yes.
And here's the dynamic in middle school: 8th grade boys and 8th grade girls, totally different deal.
Yep.
So typically 8th grade boys, I'm not gonna say that they're way more mature, because they're not, but they have a little bit different level of maturity because they're the big dogs on the block.
Mm-hmm.
Now, when they get to their freshman year of high school, the girls tend to be more popular. It's a little bit easier for them because they're the new girls on campus.
Yep.
And then for the boys, they're viewed as, instead of being freshmen, they're viewed as like little boys.
Fresh meat.
And yeah, there's a certain level of hazing and being picked on across the board.
Low man on the totem pole.
Yeah, and God forbid you not be as tall as some other ones, and you have the physical presence of being the young one.
Yeah.
And so that ends up happening, and and as far as the bully not being taken out of the class, I mean, the whole thing is, and you're right, your daughter, they should have removed the bully, but the way the law is written, parents will sue.
Yeah.
It's so litigious.
Yeah.
Yeah.
They'll sue the school district because you're singling my kid out. So what have, and then if it's found out that he wasn't
The
bullying,
little jerk singled himself out.
Well,
punching
well,
girls.
and
Like,
it's a whole, and it's a whole thing, with the principal not calling you. Well, I mean, as a parent, as a teacher, I'd have a problem with that. I mean,
Well, in hindsight, I knew the teacher was part of the problem. When I started subbing, I saw more, because like I said, I wasn't allowed on the campus during that period of time. And then when I started subbing, seeing it, I'm like, you're an issue too. So
So how long had that teacher been teaching? Did you know?
so to the point where the superintendent basically told me that they just move her around because they're just letting her finish like till she
Okay, so
retires.
she was close to
Yeah.
retirement. You know what I see is we do in public schools do a very poor job of mentoring teachers.
Mm-hmm.
We have mentor programs. We have New Teacher Academy. What a crock. I mean, like we have new teachers, and some of them are in my department at school, and I'll see them and they look so frazzled. Like, Faulks, how are you so calm? I'm like, it's 27 years.
Yeah.
Like, I know what I'm doing.
I'm calloused and hard.
And they're like, man, I just feel like I can barely stay afloat. I said, well, and on my part, not very good. I should have done a better job of checking on some of these people, because I didn't really think about it, and we don't do a good job of helping teachers figure out their teaching style. Because like my students complain, if I
asked a lot of students and they all complained.
well if I
Are they trying to pigeonhole people into one teaching style?
they don't do anything.
The district doesn't?
Yeah, they don't do anything.
Yeah.
They're like, so every school district I've been at, I've had to learn how to operate the grade book on my own.
Oh.
There's been no training on how to take attendance. There's been no training on how to handle classroom management, how to write a referral, how to do any of these things. It's like, hey, here's your keys. Here's your ID badge. This is what you're teaching. You log in here to get your rosters. How do I log in? Oh, they sent you a login.
Yeah.
You check your email and you should have a login.
Yeah.
Okay, well, how do I take roll? Oh, your mentor teacher will help you with that. And so when we have these people, and no wonder they're so frustrated. And I feel bad for them because I have kids. If I went to every teacher on campus, because this is what I was told with my mediation meeting, well, you should have gone and talked to them. Okay, well, then they should have come and talked to me.
Mm-hmm.
If you have a problem with somebody, you go and talk to them.
Yep.
And I tell the kids all the time, and I told this what I said in the meeting. I said, if I spent my day going to talk to every teacher that these kids complain about, I wouldn't be teaching.
Yeah.
I wouldn't get to teach.
You're not a counselor.
And I said, keep in mind the kids are going to complain because the kids complain to me. I'm like, well, guys, understand your teacher knows the content. They haven't discovered their teaching style. I said, I'm constantly changing my teaching style. I changed my teaching style completely after COVID because I was asked to be the online world history teacher at Hutto High School. I didn't know what the hell I was going to be doing. So I tried to teach traditional, lecture, we do this, do that.
And they're snoozing.
And they're, because when I taught online, you had to be on camera. We met 3 days a week. You had to be on camera and you had to be active. And if you were going to the restroom, you had to type in, Coach, I'm going to do that. Okay. If you didn't come back in a certain amount of time, I booted you from the class. You got counted absent that day. And so I'm about 4 or 5 weeks in. Attendance is low. I'm like, man, what the hell, man? This is not looking good. I'm like, these kids aren't learning anything. And so I reached out and asked a few people what I should do. And they're like, man, go check out YouTube. There's tons. YouTube's not like it used to be. There's a lot of resources on there. So we started watching Crash Course History. We started watching a little bit of Heimler stuff. We started watching some stuff about our content, and student engagement went up. Had higher attendance, and by the end of the year, I had parents sitting in my class. Remember, we talked about the tunnel rats of Vietnam. We were watching a video about the experiences of people who fought in Vietnam. We watched a video about the tunnel rats, and in one of the videos, so I paused and I tell the kids, I said, so understand. Most of the people that were tunnel rats were this. They were from low socioeconomic. They were minorities. They were viewed as expendable. They give them a knife in their hand, flashlight, and sidearm.
Yeah.
And they start crawling through these tunnels. And in one of the videos, then there's a film that shows a cobra, a jungle cobra, like right here. And when I paused it, because I had a student says, Coach, I have a question. And it was their parent. Is that real? And I said, yeah. And another parent jumped in and says, my dad was a tunnel rat in Vietnam. And the kids were like, I could see the reactions on their faces like, what? I said, do you want to speak to that a little bit? And so it kind of starts clicking with me. Kids are visual learners. And so I changed my teaching style to incorporate videos and more hands-on thing. If I'm teaching kids how to do writing, I break it down. We got to learn how to write a thesis statement. You got to learn how to do that. And the way we teach them in AP World is different than what they're learning in English, because their English teachers are telling them, restate the prompt. You just restate the prompt. You can't do that in AP. You can't do that in social studies. It has to be a little bit more, and in your thesis statement, your topics you're going to talk about. And so the kids don't know. The teachers think it's like a one-cut system. It's cookie cutter. It's like, okay, this is how you're supposed to write. Well, that's not college. The way you write in English class for college is different than the way you write in science, and you use different formats. I'd use Chicago style for history. I mean, my God, Chicago style? Have you ever looked at that? My goodness. And then switch over to MLA or APA for English. I mean, oh my goodness, all these acronyms are wearing me out. But it's allowing teachers the flexibility to figure out what they're doing and how they need to do it. We don't give them that, because it's, you got to do this, and everybody's going to be teaching the same thing. And so what we have these PLCs, professional learning communities, where teachers do common planning periods within their content, and they develop a lesson plan. And what teachers assume is, if we're all teaching the same thing, we should be teaching the same way. Well, that's not the case.
Yeah.
Like, okay, so and this is what I loved about my history PLC whenever I taught on level. If we're teaching Renaissance, well, the way I'm going to teach is different than the way she's going to teach it, different than the way he's going to teach it. As long as we're teaching the Renaissance, okay, so I have activities that work for me. You have activities that work for you. If we're talking about manorialism, well, I have a project we do where we draw and describe what a manor look like.
Well, yeah, it resonates with me as, like, in college I was taking stats. I had one stat teacher where I really couldn't understand what she was saying half the time, but it was not resonating with me. And then I went into the math lab, completely different stats teacher. It resonated with me. And so it's like, I learned back then that there are different ways of teaching that resonate with kids. And so it's not only up to the teacher to understand that and pivot, but the kids have to be able to ask the questions and say, hey, I don't understand that. Can you better explain it to me? What's another resource for me to understand this?
So I'll ask you two, because you're financial planning, right? And you're a realtor. So you both, I don't know if y'all have both dealt with this, but the worst thing to hear in education, it's the way I've always done it.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's the way I've always done it. Why are we changing? Do y'all hear that?
Yep.
I've always filled out the resale contract like this. Well,
Things change.
You're breaking the law.
Contracts change all the time.
You're breaking the law. I've always pushed this product. Well, you're not doing what's best for your client. You're not offering them investment opportunities that are going to maximize
Just
their
rigid. Yeah.
Yeah.
And I mean, this is like, I don't know if this is necessarily a salesism. I think it's just a behavioral idea, but it's that people are going to maintain the status quo until the price of the status quo exceeds the price of change. Right. And so eventually you get to a point, and I think making people realize that there's a pain of maintaining the status quo that they just never really realize. And so that can be kind of a change agent as well, probably for a lot of these teachers, that it's like, hey, get with the times, because you know, consistently looking at the patterns of your success are dwindling. But you keep doing the same thing. Is it you or is it the kids?
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah. Well, and my kids complain, we just get packets. Or teachers that, like, we just take notes. I'm like, we take notes in here. I'm like, they go, it's not the same.
Right.
The way we do notes in here is way different. Because we watch a little bit of Heimler video, and then when we're done, we might take notes. But I'm always, so if a kid misses my class, they can get the notes. What they don't get is the extra stuff that I talk about that's not in our content. The stuff that
real value.
Yeah. The Daryl
bonus question.
Yeah. Because like I tell them, like, I read and they start to understand where I get a lot of my stuff. Is like I get a lot from watching Anthony Bourdain shows, because he does such a good job of talking about the history. You know, in the Rome episode, Benito Mussolini. It's like, whenever you start to tell the story of Benito Mussolini, women loved him. He's not a very attractive man.
Nope.
But he had power in the way he talked, and he has charisma. And the kids are watching this, and they're like, oh, yeah, we kind of see that. So they need that visual. And when they see it, and they're like, did they really hang him upside down?
Well, and I think also
Yeah,
the
he
kids
did.
nowadays, they grew up with like YouTube and stuff, so they are more visual people than they are.
TikTok.
Yep.
You got to kind of harness the power, though.
Mm-hmm.
You know, YouTube's awesome, but it also sucks a lot. But you know,
There's
if
a
you
lot of
kind
bad
invest-
stuff out there,
Yes.
like
Yeah.
a lot of
Yeah.
misinformation.
Yeah. But yeah, I mean, so you've found a way to really harness that and direct it towards the kids who are, you know, the auditory, the kinesthetic, and then there's obviously kind of the tactile learners too. And I think that's probably what a lot of people don't understand is that you have to be all three from a teacher. You know, in some areas I'm stronger than others, but you have to realize that who it is that's on the other side of the desk or whatever the case may be, you have to bring the message to them in that style as well.
Well, and teachers being flexible, I don't know why my students think that I'm not flexible. Maybe because I appear rigid in class, but like I want everything turned in electronically. I want everything turned in on Google Classroom. I don't want to handle any papers. Then you can't say, well, you lost my work.
Right.
My dog
All right.
ate it.
Yeah, I want everything turned into Google Classroom. And so we get probably about 3/4 of the way through the school year, and I had a student, I'm watching them, and they're writing down the notes. And I was like, why are you writing down the notes? Well, Coach, I do better when I write. I remember better. And then I go home and I type it. I was like, why don't you just write it and take a picture of it with your phone and submit it as an attachment? I can do that. And I was like, yeah. So me not thinking about that,
Right.
and so I turn around and I ask, how many of y'all are more comfortable writing things out? And a bunch of them raised their hand. And I was like, oh. I said, well, how about this? How about those of y'all want to write things out? Do that. Just take a picture of it. Now, when we do writing assignments, like for DBQs and FRQs and stuff like that, then if you want to write out your stuff, that's fine. You can take a picture of it, show it to me. If I can read it, I'll accept it. But understand, typing out, if we have a length requirement, typing it out, writing out, two different things.
Yes.
I said, so write it out and then type it, which means you're going to have to be more diligent and focused in doing your work. And so far it hasn't been a problem. So, you know, and it's almost like allowing a modification or an accommodation without anybody having to be SPED or 504.
Formalized.
Yeah,
right?
and you know, it's doing what's best for the kid. If they're more comfortable writing this out, just understand if it's a writing assignment, I need you to type it out. And so far it hasn't been a problem. And here's what happens. And this is what I tell teachers: when you allow kids to do that, you win them over.
Yeah.
And it's not easy, but it's not hard.
Because they feel like they're heard and seen, you know?
Yeah. You know, and I know I've got kids in my class that don't like me, and that doesn't bother me at all. And I've told them when I recruit for these trips, don't let your personal feelings about me keep you from going on an amazing trip. I said, because here's what you'll see.
I'm a different version of a trip.
I am because I had one of my former players, Camila, comes in. She's been at my last two meetings. Freshman year, shy. Last year, shy. Absolutely shy. She's in mariachi. Very quiet kid. Went on our trip this past summer to Germany, Italy, and Switzerland. And we came back in the fall. She showed it to the meeting, and because she's going next summer. And I asked her, I said, Camila, I said, I know you're shy. Would you mind talking about your experience? She stood right up, just like, I was like, I love her. And she showed it to meeting on Monday. And I said, well, I wasn't expecting Camila to be here, but she's going on our trip to the Mediterranean coast. I said, talk about your experience on this trip. She goes, y'all need to go. I mean, she just chimed right in. She goes, y'all need to go. I said, and how was I on the trip? It's like she said, you never see him. I said, I'm there. I promise you I'm there. I'm usually in the back, ramrodding people, keeping people together. I said, but I am
Growling.
there. She goes, and I can attest, Coach Faulks, Mr. Faulks, and Daryl Faulks are three different people.
Yeah.
And I said, I swear to you, I don't have multiple personalities. But the way I am in coaching, the way I'm in the classroom, the way I'm on these trips is totally different. And so
It's that foreign air.
well, yeah, and I think it's, you know, as we get done with curriculum, because I made a point, because I know some kids that are a little bit standoffish and a little suspect, and I know some of the ones that don't like me so much. When I got done proctoring the stats test that morning, I turned all my stuff in, and I hurried down to where my kids were getting ready to take the test, because I wanted to see them before they went in, for my benefit. And when they saw me walking up, they were all excited. And they're like, I said, are y'all nervous? And they're like, yeah. I said, don't be. You're going to kill this test.
Mm-hmm.
And I said, I believe in you. And I told them this. I said, there is nothing you can do on this test that's going to disappoint me. And I even made a Google Classroom just for test review. None of their other AP teachers did this. I don't know why. So I even bought the Heimler's history review. It was like $30, and I posted a whole bunch of stuff for them. And I posted on there, and I said, I just want y'all to know I'm so proud of y'all. And I had one kid comment back, thank you for believing.
Aww. And that's the thing is there's not,
Good.
I mean, I have a whole special place in my heart for teachers that do it for the love of teaching, that they have a passion for the subject.
I do it for the low paycheck every month.
I'll tell you.
He's doing it
like
for
to
the 160 days he works here.
Yeah.
You've
I
been there
appreciate
almost,
electricity.
you've been there almost 3 decades now. And, when you started, there was X percentage of, I guess, teachers that were really worthy of that kind of praise. And, I guess we'll just call them the good ones, right?
Yeah.
But does that percentage still exist, do you feel?
No.
I didn't think so either.
I don't think so.
I don't even have to think about that. No.
Yeah.
Because I can see a lot of teachers disengage. And, James and I have talked about it a lot. Teachers put themselves here
Yes.
and students here.
Right.
Yes.
Now, in terms of, I've been told you're creating an imbalance of power in your classroom. Well, there should be.
Yeah.
I'm the teacher.
Yep.
I'm the adult. They're the child. They're the student. There should be an imbalance of power.
Level of respect.
Well, if they feel they feel like they can't come talk to you about their grade, I go, well, then their parents probably should have done a better job of not making them so soft.
Right.
It's your grade. Like, you can email me.
Right.
Yep.
And I said, and I've shown time and time again that if a kid feels like, well, that grade's not right, or hey, I have a 0 for that, but I turned that in, come and talk to me, and if it's legit, we'll fix it. We will fix
Yeah.
it. But I require students to come see me outside of our class time to get late work graded for 2 reasons. I mean, okay, you turned it in late, so that's an inconvenience to me. I'm going to inconvenience you a little bit. But 2, if you've left something out, I can ask you a question. You can verbally answer and get you the full credit you deserve for that. You're allowed to for that.
Right. For being late.
For being late. And I enforce the late work policy, which I don't agree with late work policies. If you don't turn it on time, it's a 0. Because we don't, if you have clients that want you to submit a contract, or you have a client that wants you to change an investment, and you don't do it in time, and it costs them thousands of dollars, or
They miss out
you
on
don't,
their
you
house.
don't, they miss out on their dream house. Okay,
Yep.
same thing. We're not teaching our kids real world.
You're probably
skills.
fired, and so am I.
Right.
Well, we don't teach our kids real rules. And I tell them, I said, so what happens if you're at a job and your boss has to give a presentation to the board of directors, and you have a certain part that you have to do and you don't do it, and your boss goes in there and your part's not done, and he looks foolish. Guess who's getting fired?
Yeah,
Right.
there's not a late work policy in
No.
life.
No.
No.
There's not.
called a
You're-
deadline.
Well, and you definitely don't have your parents calling and
Right.
like excusing things for you. You know,
Yeah. And,
Johnny
and-
wasn't at school today, at work today. I'm sorry. Where do I send his doctor's note?
Well, and your parents can't call your college professor and ask how you're doing.
But they
in class.
do. Like, that's a thing these days.
I know it
that
is.
Parents are getting
it's a
involved
FERPA
in college
violation. They
education.
can't. It's a FERPA violation.
But parents are getting involved in their kids' college educations, and sometimes even with their job interviews and things
Yeah.
like that. It's
Yeah, I heard that too.
wild to me.
Yes.
Right?
Yeah.
Yeah, and that kind of, it's a part of kind of the later, cell phone conversation. And it's like right smack dab in the middle of it. But how ultra involved parents are with their kids, uber
They don't
involved,
allow them to
helicopter.
fail.
But when it comes to their phone use, they have no freaking clue what's going on. So they're hyper involved here, but they have no idea what's
When
going
you
on
asked what is like leading to the Hunger Games of middle school, it's like you said, it's cell phones. It's most of the kids in elementary don't have it. The parents that do give it to them, I don't know why, but all of a sudden it's this gateway once you enter middle school, and you've got kids downloading apps, and 90% of those apps that are bad for you, they don't even have to download the app. They could get it through a web browser.
Right.
They get access through Snapchat through a web browser. And so you've got kids that, I walked down the hallway when I was subbing, and these kids were watching pornographic videos to each other. They were airdropping nudes to each other. And it's like, so the cell phones, it's an electronic leash the parents think is a security, but it's not a security for them.
Terry's over there like, my daughter's not going to middle school.
She's not getting, and it's kind of like,
All homeschooler
well,
for you.
it's kind
I saw
of,
your face. You're like, what?
I have conversations with parents that are my age or have got kids, my own kids' age. And it's always like, how are you guys navigating the cell phone thing? Almost like it's like a Mexican kind of standoff. Because
Yeah.
you don't want to say like,
Yeah,
well,
it is.
I think that anybody who allows their kids to have cell phones are just real freaking idiots. By the way, does your kid have cell phones? So it's always kind of like, how'd you guys choose to navigate it? And you just kind of wait like, yes, that's very interesting.
Yeah.
But it's mind-blowing to me that I think everybody, I don't know, I think it's a broad generalization to say that cell phones are entirely bad. But the gateway that they allow for
Yes.
kids is just
The accessibility.
and you guys have seen it, right? It's the bullying, it's the cheating, it's the anxiety of not having it. It's all those things. So we wouldn't we absolutely would not give our kids drugs
No.
or things that they would become addicted to. We don't even give our kids caffeine if they want caffeine, right?
Right.
Because it's bad for you. That's why we're not going to give it to you. But the vast majority of teenagers have phones, right? The studies are showing us that. So I don't know why. And it's because parents, and I don't mean to call out parents, I don't mean to, belabor the point or anything, but it's because parents feel like they have to have that connection with their kids.
Yep.
And if it's suggested that, hey, I think maybe we should take cell phones out of schools, they lose their freaking collective minds. And I
do.
think
Only in this country. Only in this country.
And I think a lot of the times
It's entitlement, man.
and my kids are only,
That's exactly what
11,
it
8,
is.
and 6. And so, we haven't really put on our, boxing gloves yet. But I think it has a lot to do with that. They're afraid to parent their kids. And they're afraid to have difficult conversations. So
Well, they want to be their
answer
friend.
is-
I'll
No.
let you go ahead and
Yes.
parent my kid and tell
Yeah.
them when they can't use their
Yeah.
phones.
Yeah.
Because I don't want to, I don't want to
But then when we do that, we get criticized for how we do it. So like when I found out that a student recorded me, and then the comment was, well, they don't want you to retaliate. I'm like, never. I'm like, so you're assuming?
Yeah.
I said, so what you just made is a slanderous statement. Because I don't, why would I retaliate against a child? I said, I'll retaliate against you
Right.
because you're an adult. So be careful. I know people.
Yeah.
And so, and I know things.
Winking at me.
And I can find out things real easy, but I don't. I was like, I'm never going to retaliate against a child. They're kids, and they're going to do what
Yeah.
kids do. And
They're impulsive. They don't think.
And I think in some schools, there's groups of kids that like to try to get teachers in trouble or try to get them fired. Okay,
It's
well,
this victimhood mentality.
yeah, and that's why I don't. When I told them, I said your cell phones have to be in your backpack, and when I see them put them in their pocket, I go, backpack. Your pocket's not your backpack. Well, Coach, I don't have a backpack. Okay, well, then you can put it on my desk.
Yep.
Because if I see you with your phone and it's not in your backpack, I will take it up, and you can come get it at the end of the day after your mommy and daddy call me, or they come up here and talk to me.
Yeah.
And so that's usually enough of a deterrent for them to put their phones up. And since I've done that, engagement's gone up. I mean, everything's
Yeah.
been a whole lot better in the class. Now they have to sit there and they talk to each other.
Exactly.
And now I have to tell them, y'all shut up. We got
But
work
you've
to
been
do.
doing this for 27 years, and you command a presence in a classroom, and
Sometimes it's
with
a little
respect,
scary.
right? But you've got a first-year teacher. And she's 5'1", and this is her first year, so she's already terrified of these kids.
Shots fired.
Your
Looks
feet
at
are
My
kind of hanging.
booster seat.
But how do you expect that teacher to enforce that, right? Because I feel the district won't take advantage. The district won't put their
Enforce
foot
it.
down. Yeah, they're not going to enforce it. The parents aren't going to enforce it, and so they're just saying, yeah, the teachers, that should just
Nobody
go
wants
ahead
to
and
be
be theirs.
responsible.
Right,
Yeah.
and so
Yeah,
it's
it's a
her.
lot
It's
of
the pass
it,
the
yeah.
buck constant.
Yeah.
And not only do you see, they're just running all over that teacher, but then you see some of these crazy videos. And I don't know, there was that one where a teacher took away a kid's Nintendo. And this kid was like 6'6". His Switch, I don't know why he has it at school. And he damn near killed her. Right? He came up behind her and mauled her in
Hit
the
her.
hall room.
Yeah.
Oh my god.
And so I don't blame a lot of teachers for being like,
Yeah.
look, I mean, it's just not a fight I'm going to have. So who's...
Well, that's when your administrators need to administrate. That is their
Right.
job. They're paid to lead. They need to lead from the top. That is
It's
their
like
job.
when you're in a restaurant and a customer complains to the waiter, the waitress, you go get the manager.
Yes.
Right.
And the manager handles the situation.
Yes.
and
Yes.
uses
Otherwise
because
it
the manager's
escalates.
in charge of enforcing the policy
Mm-hmm.
of either you're right or wrong as a guest, or we're going to compliment you.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You know what I
So
mean?
where do you stand on the idea of just enforcing it on high and that just giving all the teachers the ability to say, not my decision. I'd love for all of you to be happy, but the district won't allow that.
Right.
Well,
Make the district the bad guy.
Yes.
yeah.
Right.
Well, and we have administrators. They're administrators at schools. I won't single mine out, but I've seen this a lot. that don't have enough classroom experience. You know, they don't have enough classroom experience. They taught for 4 or 5 years, 3 or 4 years. They taught the minimum, go get their master's degree.
Yep.
And then they go into administration. Now, nowhere does it say that they were masters at classroom management.
Mm-hmm.
And I see in every school I've been at, I've seen people that are working on that, and they have to do a little bit of time shadowing, and they're out there and like I'll see them like, you better be elementary school,
Mm-hmm.
because like I've heard the kids talk about you, and again, the kids come in my classroom and they talk.
Well, yeah, when we did that survey, how many of the kids said that they didn't see the principal, the vice principal? They weren't in the halls. They were literally would, cater to the bad kids. They never.
They do.
Yeah,
Right.
they never
They
gave
do.
the time to the good kids and stuff. So you've got these administrators that are hiding in a room, in a desk somewhere, when they should be in the hallways enforcing rules. Like
Administrators should be in the hallways 5 minutes before the bell rings to release class and 10 minutes after
Yes.
the bell rings to start class.
yes,
And on any given day, we have more kids walking around the halls of school than are walking around mall shopping.
right. And you
And-
got like
and-
1 or 2 SROs that are like trying to handle all of this.
And it's not their job.
Yes.
It's not the SRO's job. So getting to your question, teachers need to receive better support. This is one reason why a lot of teachers get out, because they don't feel supported.
Yeah.
They don't feel supported by admin, because if I'm an assistant principal and a teacher sends me a student who's being disruptive to class, and I've talked to that teacher on the phone, I'm going to talk to him on the phone. I'm like, we're going to take a little time in your class, find out what's going on. Most administrators will send that kid right back to class.
Yeah.
So a teacher doesn't feel supported. I'm like, what the hell am I doing here?
Yeah.
Right.
So that student should not be sent back to class. Like, okay, you need to stay in here for a while, and we're going to talk to your parents.
Or they don't enforce the rules. So, like, yeah, there's a kid that, they just were fighting and stuff, and they're going to say, oh, they were horse playing. It's like, no, they pummeled the heck out of each other. But just
Yeah.
because you don't want to deal with the paperwork of it all,
Right.
you're saying they're horse playing.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, I mean, and I would say that on any given day, and you have a different perspective, Ashley, because you subbed in schools and went to schools. I'd say on any general day, probably about 80 to 85% of parents have no idea what goes on in a school on any given day and what's going on. They don't understand the policies. They're hypercritical of anything that infringes upon their rights as a parent. Because last school year we had a situation. There had been a fight, and they got everything under control. And somewhere during the day, somebody posted on social media that they were going to shoot up the school. Okay, so I've been doing this a long time, and nowhere have I ever seen someone post that they're going to shoot up a school and then go do it.
Right.
They're not going to announce it.
Right.
So what ends up happening is schools get these threats. They see them. They work through the federal government, state, local, the DPS, federal government, ATF, and they investigate. So for our school, we went on shelter in place. That's one of our deals. And what that means is we kept everybody in the classroom and we just stayed there. Well, all these parents found the kids are texting their parents, texting their parents. Parents start showing up to sign their kids out. And then on social media, on the Seguin High School Facebook page, parents are being hypercritical of how the situation was handled.
Yep.
And in our social studies text thread, teachers feeling nervous, apprehensive about coming to school the next day. And I said, y'all need to go check out the social media post. These are the same people that you email that never email you back about their kids' grades, but they're the first ones to come up here and complain about what's going on. I said, not understanding, like, well, you're not protecting my kid. Okay, so if we go on lockdown and you show up on campus, you pull in that parking lot to get your kid,
Right.
now you're breaking the law.
Yep.
You can be arrested because now you're criminal trespassing, because if we're on lockdown, you can't go to campus. So if your daughter's school goes on lockdown, you can't go out there and pick them up.
Well, and
Keep your butt away.
That's that magical moment that parents are, using to justify the need for their kid to have school. Well, what happens in case, my kid's school goes on lockdown or there's a shooter? Well, your 7th grader is not going to save the world.
No, that and
you
also
are further creating more and more noise and problems.
Your 7th grader also doesn't know the facts, so that's how the rumor mill gets spread. And so it's
Absolutely.
like, it started out this kid saying he was going to shoot up the school, and then all of a sudden it becomes, I saw somebody in the bathroom with a gun, and
Law enforcement enforcement does not want a 12-year-old to be the liaison in
No.
a life or death situation.
No.
Like
No.
that's absurd to think of.
Yes.
And they
So-
don't want a bunch of clandestine deputy dogs up there trying to help out. I mean,
Yeah.
Right.
I mean, think about it. I mean, do parents not realize that if somebody were to try to get into my room, I'm going to protect their kids?
Right.
I mean, do they think I'm going to grab my stuff and run?
Bounce.
Like
You're on your own.
well,
Nice
I mean,
knowing ya.
Later, idiots.
it's funny because like when we have back to school night, we have meet the teacher this past year, and I make a serious comment and I make a joking comment. I told the parents, get off your kids' back about their grades. Grades doesn't mean you learned. If you make hundreds, it doesn't mean you learned. It just means you cheated very well.
Yep.
I said that's not the point. We want to learn. I said, and two, make sure your kids are wearing proper footwear, because if we ever have to evacuate the building, I will George Costanza your child to get out of here. And they're like, Seinfeld reference, I get it. And they're like, you're joking, right? I said, I am joking, but I'm not. I'm like, I'm about to be a granddad. I'm going to be a granddad. If your kid's in my way, I will pick them up and carry them. I'm grabbing my backpack and my lunch bag and my athletic bag, and I will run.
I'm gonna show you the coach in me.
Yeah, I will get down those stairs, lickety split. And I said, some of y'all's kids will go wait for the elevator. I'm like, no, I'm going down the stairs. I'm getting the hell out of here. And I, they're like, a lot of parents understand you're joking around, but then you have those parents that have no sense of humor.
Yeah.
They're like, I don't think that's funny. Hey, coach, are you gonna come over here on the weekend to do a review for the AP exam? No. Why am I gonna drive from Kyle, Texas to Seguin to do a review for 8 kids to show up
Yeah.
when I can do review in my classroom? That's why I built that Google Classroom. And whenever I told some people that, they're like, I never would have thought to do that, because it was all AP World History Test Resources Review. It's one-stop shop. All my kids joined it, and I could post it in one place, and it didn't get lost in our content for the other stuff in our classes. And because I want my kids to do good, and it's not a reward to me.
Yeah.
It's not my victory. It's 100% them.
Yeah.
And teachers, I think teachers just feel so overwhelmed now. They allow themselves to feel so overwhelmed. I've got to go home and grade. Why? I grade at school.
Yeah.
Right. And if
Don't
I
you
do
have a conference period?
Yeah, and if I do grade, well, our conference period, so we have 2 off periods a day, because we'll have 8 periods again next year in one day. And so one of those periods has to be spent on PLC. And then if I'm off and I get called into an ARD or a 504 meeting or something else. So there's weeks that go by where I may never have my conference period, or if I'm having to administer a test and my conference period is in the morning and I'm in a classroom administering a test, STAR test or something like that, benchmark, then I lose my conference period. Or they make me go do something here, this, there, and the other. I lose my conference period, so I don't have planning time. And so I get grading done as I can. If I have to grade, typically I will grade at home if I'm grading like DBQs and stuff like that, and I grade a little bit different than other AP teachers do, because I don't ding them hard on points. I look for content, and then I look for them to match the style that we're supposed to be doing in. And then I give them grace early on, and then in the second semester I start taking off points for grammar and spelling.
Right.
Because you're typing on a Google Doc, it'll tell you if it's misspelled.
Yeah.
It just
It's
shows
underlined.
You work on a cheat sheet.
it just shows that you're. And what I tell them is like, you typed this last night, right?
Yeah.
They're like, yeah. I said, because your ideas are all jumbled together, and so if they don't follow the format, and this is for me, I don't know that other teachers do this, they get a 0. Go back and fix it, and I'll grade it for full points. And if you have questions on how you're supposed to be doing this, you should be asking. And a lot of kids are afraid to ask, because when they ask teachers, they get conditioned. When they ask teachers like, I've already explained the instructions. I mean, so think about it. If you ask your broker, let's say you're filling out a form. Let's say you're not as familiar doing a condo form, which can be a little intimidating if you look at it. And you ask your broker for guidance. Well, you fill out just like the regular residential contract. No, you don't.
Get out of my face.
Because, because you know as well as I do. You fill out those forms wrong.
Yep.
And you screw something up.
Cost your client a lot of money.
And you can get sued. Big time. So there are brokers out there that will not give guidance to their agents.
Oh, yeah.
At all. Just like in schools, we have administrators that don't give guidance to teachers. And then they create these this false sense of security, these mentorship programs, so someone can stand up there and like, oh, I'm in charge of the district's mentor program, and we had 12 new teachers at the high school.
He likes to
We
mimic
had
people
all
like
these
me.
mentors, and they did such a good job. No, your new teachers are wanting to leave
Yeah.
because nobody has helped them. Oh, hey, how are you doing? Pass them in the hall. How you doing? Oh, hey, remember at the end of the year we're having a luncheon. They're going to get you a sub. So we're going to go to the admin building and have a luncheon. It's probably going to be a Schlotsky sandwich or HEB tray of cookies or something.
McAllister's Deli.
Congratulations for that. I'd go for some McAllister's Deli. But, I mean, that's what they do. And then they pass it off as like we're helping new teachers. And they're not.
Mm-mm.
What you have to do is you sit down and you have to talk to them. Like, this is what works for me. And let that mentor teacher go in and observe that person teaching and see what they're doing and give them honest feedback. You know, we have administrators. I mean, hardly anybody comes to my classroom. I'm fine with that. I mean, but if you come in my classroom, I don't pull out the hoops and light the fire and let the poodles jump through there. Well, if what we're doing is what we're doing. If we're doing notes, we're taking notes. And then this is what I'm told. Your lesson's not aligned with TEKS. I don't teach TEKS. I teach College Board. There's a big difference.
Yeah.
Well, you need to no. Call the AP College Board and ask them if I'm supposed to be teaching TEKS. Here, I got the number right here. Let's call them right now. I've got the 800 number. Let's call them. And I'll do that. I mean, you know, because I don't teach TEKS. And we're supposed to be heavy on notes. So heavy lecture, heavy notes. Our hands-on stuff is when we're doing writing assignments. And come in during one of those days, and you will see me walking around helping kids with their writing. Getting on there like, how's my thesis statement look? Okay, well, let's look at this. And I model for them. Again, this is 27 years. 20 years ago, I wouldn't have done this because I didn't know. I did emergency certification. And our teacher certification program, shocking, isn't it?
Yeah.
And our teacher certification programs do not do a good job of training teachers,
No.
preparing them. They teach them pedagogy, you know, Bloom's taxonomy. Make the topic interesting. I hate educational jargon.
Yeah.
Well, you need to reach these different levels of Bloom's. No, you don't. You make the topic interesting for the kids
Yeah.
and be a good teacher and show them that you care and you give a crap and they will want to learn. You present engaging activities. Our interim principal at my school, I love Cheryl. When I found out she was going to be our interim principal, I almost jumped out the window. I was so excited because I worked with her in Elgin, and she's a teacher's principal and she's a student principal. And so whenever I saw her, the first day she was on campus, ran up and gave each other a hug. We're standing there talking, and she's like, "How are your kids? How are your daughters?" And I was like, "Oh, they're great." And I was like, "I saw your kids," and people were standing there like, "How do you know her?" I was like, "I know everybody." I'm like, "No." So I said, "Yeah, I saw y'all were in New York, and I saw Ben, and, propose to his now fiance, and I saw Terry on with there." So we're talking about these people, and people are like, "Oh my God!" And that's because Cheryl's the kind of principal that helps teachers. And we've had this conversation like, Seguin's a good school. There's good kids there and they want to learn.
Yeah.
If you want kids to quit roaming the halls, have engaging lessons.
Exactly.
And don't have an engaging lesson when you're being observed on
Yeah.
your formal observation, because that's what a lot of teachers do.
You want to look good.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's the
Boss is
circus.
coming.
Yeah.
Y'all still look high?
I'll tell you,
The one day they're not in yoga here.
I'll tell you what, whenever I got observed this year, we were doing notes over post-World War II Europe. That's exactly what we're doing. And, well, I thought your lesson good. Oh, okay.
I don't care.
I thought my lesson was really good because what you didn't see is the days leading up to that,
Yeah.
and what you're not seeing is the days after that,
Yeah.
and how the kids learn. I'm excited to see how their scores were on the AP exam. And again, if they do well, it has nothing to do with me. It's 100%. I will always take. I've already told them. I said I dropped the ball on exposing you to the multiple choice question styles, and we should have done more essay questions. We did short answer, did DBQ, because the kids all told me, "Coach, I feel like I knocked that DBQ out of the park because we worked on it so much." But the essay, I didn't even answer it. I'm like, you could have finessed a 3 out of 5 points, and they go, "What do you mean finesse?" I go, BS.
Repeat the question.
I was like, so if you have 3 questions, you pick one of the 3, find the one that you remember the most on, and just fluff it. Mm-hmm. And they're like, I didn't even think about that. I go, and that's why you do what you do, and I do what I do. Exactly. I mean, it's stuff like that. But teachers just don't feel supported from a discipline standpoint. And again, if you're teaching engaging lessons, and take yourself off of here, and come down a little bit on a social level. Like, you're not my friend. My friends are grown adults. You're here, but I'm not going to put myself way up here.
But you're not garbage. You're not dumb. You're not idiots. You're still worthy of learning. And yeah.
And they're smart kids. Like, I don't know that I could go back to teaching on level. I wouldn't know what to do. This is my, teaching AP this year has been very refreshing for me. And I have kids in there that don't want to do work. Well, don't get me wrong.
Yeah, I have a friend. I think I was telling you guys about her. She went out of teaching and stuff. She's been teaching for 10 years, and she said she loved it. She loved the kids. It was being around the other teachers that she just does not miss.
It's a toxic environment.
Yeah, she says it was the whining, the complaining, the entitlement. She was like, it was just exhausting to deal with.
And you get that in other professions, but it's more damaging in teaching. Mm-hmm. I've heard some realtors complain, and that realtor's an idiot. I see it all the time, and I still have friends of mine that are realtors, and they deal with realtors all the time, and they tend to be skeptical of things, and especially how to get leads and Facebook ads and stuff like that, and they're very skeptical, even though they see on paper that like this program works. Oh my God, and this guy's awesome. They're skeptical. Teachers are the same way. The like the comment I made earlier. It's the way I've always done it. Mm-hmm. Well, this is my favorite unit. Nobody cares.
It's not about you.
It's not about you. Yeah. Okay, because I love talking about the Renaissance. Uh-huh. Well, guess how much time we spent talking about the Renaissance in AP World History.
Yeah.
And I've been to Florence, and it's awesome. But we spent that much time. Guess how much time we spent talking about 9/11 in AP World. A little bit. And when and it's global because
How much you talk about Building 7?
Well, we could have talked about that, but we didn't.
About
I mean, it's we have certain topics that we talk about it. So like world history is more of just an overview. Mm-hmm. And that's a lot of what when we're teaching is kind of what it is, an overview.
Yeah, it's very broad.
Without getting into the meat of things, because we have very broad curriculum. Mm-hmm. We don't write the curriculum.
Nope.
The state does. Mm-hmm. And for people that don't realize, our curriculum is politically driven.
Yep.
It's driven by political parties.
That's right.
Mm-hmm.
Guess which party is in control? And I'm conservative. Guess which parties control the State Board of Education? Republicans. Guess who's been in charge of this state for the last 30 or 40 years? Republicans. So if we look at the state of education and where we're at as schools, it's a top-down problem. And it starts at the top, which is state leaders, and it trickles down. Mm-hmm. That doesn't mean that school boards are not at fault, because they are. Because school boards allow certain things to go on in their district that shouldn't be going on. We were focused on the wrong things. We're fighting the wrong battles.
Well, and aren't they in charge of the superintendent?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
The superintendent doesn't work for the district. The superintendent works for the school board.
Yep, and I think people need to realize that and why your local elections matter.
And some of them make a lot of money. I think ours makes, the total comp package is like $400,000.
Mm-hmm. How much does his wife make?
At least 50. It spins off at least 50. But we only had 23,000 kids, I think. It's wild, how these things get justified. So
yeah, it's interesting.
And who are they accountable for? Who are they accountable to, right? I mean, to your
school
point.
board.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Not
and
you.
Who's the school board accountable to?
Voters.
Ish.
Voters.
The 2,000 voters who show up.
Yeah. And I've taught government before. Register to vote, and if you go vote, great. If not, I'm not gonna judge you one way or the other, but don't complain.
Don't complain. Yep.
And it's again, we taught government the wrong way. I don't care who the president is.
Right.
I do care, but I don't. I'm not so much worried about John Cornyn or Ted Cruz or Lloyd Doggett or any of those other guys. And Lloyd's he's a good guy. I mean, don't always agree with his policies, but I worry more about Erin Zwainer. How's she voting?
Yep.
And Donna Campbell. I know she's your favorite.
Yeah, you got to take care of your backyard before your front yard.
Well,
Yeah.
and and Donna Campbell. And I made a comment on
Carrie
X.
Isaac.
Yeah. I actually had a great conversation with her when she first ran for office.
Yeah.
We talked back and forth on Facebook Messenger. And I told her I was a conservative. She goes, so you're a Republican? I was like, I don't do parties.
Mm-hmm.
Just like I don't do religion. I do Jesus.
Mm-hmm.
Praise God. I said, I don't agree with everything that you stand for. I said, I do realize that you tend to have a little bit different philosophy than your husband, Jason, which is fine. My biggest issue is when you guys get up there, you don't vote according to your constituents. You vote
Yep.
according to
For
the
you.
donors.
Mhm.
I mean, look at the
Who's lining
voucher.
your
Look at the
pockets.
voucher program.
Yep.
If you're anti-voucher, you get primaried and you get put out so that we can get enough people in to do that. And I made this comment on X. I said, all you guys are complaining about state reps and shoving all this stuff down our throat. I said, do you think they care about what you think? I said, they're not voting according to what you want.
They've
They're
already
voting
made a decision.
Yeah, they've already made a decision. Right. They're voting according to what their party leaders tell them to. If you're a Republican, you're voting according to what Dan Patrick and Greg Abbott tell you to, because if you don't, we're going to primary you. I said, that's extortion.
Yep.
I said, it's not appropriate. And we have too many people in our society that haven't grown up learning what the role of politicians is. I mean, think about it. The ancient Romans were to come back, if they created the Republic, if they came back and saw, and James and I have talked to this extensively, if Ronald Reagan were to come back and look at the state of the Republican Party today,
Yep.
he would be appalled. And I'm not a big Reagan guy.
Do JFK in the Democratic Party now.
Same thing. Same thing. Or even better that, Walter Mondale.
Yeah.
I always say if Barbara
Tip
Walters
O'Neill.
came back
Right.
to see The View, she'd go back.
I mean, it's everything's become so polarizing, and it's a whole us versus them. No, it's we.
Right.
Like there's a politician on X who constantly deriding. He's in the state house, and he's constantly deriding the speaker and the rhinos. He calls them rhinos. Republicans in name only. And I've made several comments. You're just as bad. You're a shill for big-time donors. I bet you rarely vote according to what your constituents want you to vote. Because if you, in your district, if 85% of the people in your district did not want vouchers and you still voted for them, you're not doing your job.
That's all the lobbyists.
Would that be Speaker Burrows?
Speaker Burrows is the one that he calls out. It's Brian Harrison.
Brian Harrison.
Is the House Republican who's been very
I'm looking
active.
at your comment here.
He's been very active. Yeah. Yeah, you all are hilarious. None of these people really care what their constituents think.
Oh, yeah. I get into this about all the growth and development going around here. And, like, you have mayors like, oh, yeah, these developers want to speak to you. Like, you already made the decision. You already signed on the line. Now you're just trying to make peace with us.
But you said he's hilarious, but the guy below you said he's a domestic terrorist. So I think you need to kind of up your game a little bit. He says he's a domestic terrorist twice. Wow.
But Burrows isn't. I mean, and he gets called a rhino.
Oh, that's where you laughed at him. I see.
Yeah. Yeah, Republican name only. Okay, well, you're not very good at what you do either. Then there's my buddy Adam Harvey down there. Yeah, he deserved it. Adam's a great guy. Yeah, I don't understand. It kind of goes back to things that we don't teach very well. See, Ashleigh, you're in a position where you can control the narrative and what your kids are learning. I'm a firm believer that we need to put Latin in our elementary schools.
Yes.
We're like the only country that is super critical on like learning multiple languages. You need to learn English.
Except Spanish. Really.
Yeah,
I mean, there's some
except for
kind of
Spanish.
push.
But
To me, I take 8 semesters Latin across high school and college, and I would argue that Latin is learning English in many ways.
Mm-hmm.
And it's also learning other languages. It's the
Yeah.
root
Yeah, I mean,
language
it's
for other
a
languages.
lot.
Yeah, for everything west of there,
Mm-hmm.
absolutely.
Because when
And
we travel, we can be in Germany,
you can get by.
and
On a
people
little bit.
and people can speak. People in the tourist industry there can speak German and French.
Mm-hmm.
Like our buddy Tom, who's from America, lives in Madrid, is fluent in Spanish. He can speak a little bit of French. He can speak French enough that we're in Paris. He's communicating in French. But if he finds people in France that can't speak, that he's not, he'll ask them, "Do you speak Spanish?" And I'm like, "Yeah."
Mm-hmm.
Only here do we require everybody to learn our language.
Yep.
I'm trying to learn Italian on Duolingo. I get it. Do your kids struggle with Duolingo?
Yes.
It can be because like trying to learn Italian because we're going there this summer, going back there next summer. You got to know the gender.
Mm-hmm.
You got to say it right because if I type it in wrong or I say it wrong, the big red thing comes up and I lose one of my hearts.
Yeah.
I don't want to lose,
man.
and I'm not going to pay for Duolingo Extra. I mean, but I mean, it's a great resource.
Yeah.
I mean, because it's opened my eyes
Mm-hmm.
to how difficult it is. Because I know I've got friends of mine whose kids go to Valor. They teach Latin over there,
Yep.
and that's one of the reasons
one of
why.
my big draws.
Yeah,
They started in elementary school. It's amazing.
it's a charter school
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
that's looks like a private church school.
Mhm.
They also have a no cell phone policy.
Mhm.
Are you
Yeah,
on the waiting list? over there?
Still on the waiting list. We've just been in this holding pattern. My daughter might kill me if we go down that route, but it would be like a lot of temporary pain, but she would lose her
Is it
mind.
because all her friends are going?
Yeah,
and
and but it's like that. But like you said, it's like, yeah, you're gonna see them, but
You don't get
you're
quality
just
time
gonna
with them.
see them.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah,
so
because
that's
your
the extent
recess
of
is
it.
all of that's gone. So she doesn't realize once you enter middle school, your elementary days are over.
Right.
Like recess,
And-
playtime.
it's a shock.
Mm-hmm.
And it's just gonna be like going into Gen Pop, man. I'm
Yeah.
like, oh, you're on your own, kid.
Basically,
Yeah.
yeah.
That's
Gen
a-
Pop. It's
That's a lot of it.
That's
I
a good
mean,
analogy.
and and I always tell people in the few years I did real estate, and I've asked people if they have kids. No, so schools don't matter. I'm like, oh, the hell they don't.
Oh yeah.
Mhm.
Because you find a house in a neighborhood with a really good middle school that can increase the value 10 to 15,000
Yep.
easily.
Right.
Because middle school is the hardest school to find that's good.
Yep.
I mean, McCormick's good.
I hear great things about McCormick.
Well, the principal is an amazing human being. I mean, he's just
Great culture.
yeah.
I've
Is
heard
it
good
the
things
same
about
principal?
Barton.
Barton's
Tell me
good.
something good about Dahlstrom, man.
Yeah. Well,
Eh?
I mean, both of my kids went there, and they had a good experience.
To a degree, it's probably, I mean,
Yeah, but there
you
were
as a
issues.
parent
There
have
are
the
always
ability
issues.
to make what you make of it too,
Right.
right? But sometimes it's difficult to do that in a toxic environment.
and that's what's happened is you have a
Yes.
handful of parents, usually 5 to 6, and there's always a ringleader.
Mm-hmm.
And they're the toxic twins. Sometimes it's mostly moms, unfortunately. Sorry.
Not me.
Not to be anti-woman, but it's usually moms. And what they do is they're good at spreading things around,
Mm-hmm.
and people they're drawn to them.
They like
And-
turmoil.
Yeah, and you know the kind of people I'm talking about, where people will attach themselves to them because they feel like they're in the in crowd.
Yep.
They feel like they're part of the in crowd. They feel like
It's like they never left middle school.
yeah,
Yep.
they feel that they're more noteworthy.
Mm-hmm.
It's like, I'm friends with her. I'm like, is that a good thing?
Yeah. I saw how she treated someone in HEB.
Yeah, because your actions matter, and
Yes. It goes back to you are the company you keep. If that's what you want, then
Well, and my question to people is, if you're complaining about your kid's school, what are you doing about it?
Right.
How involved are you?
And
Well,
that's-
I work.
and that's where Terry comes in a lot, where he's trying to get involved and get people involved on that page, and gets kicked around and blocked by everybody.
Ugly. Yeah. Just asking, it kind of goes back to that tribalistic attitude of, just asking. It's not okay to ask questions.
yeah.
Asking questions is a total affront to me, and we've
No,
already
it's
kind of
okay
gone
to
down
ask
that path.
questions as long as you're asking the right questions
Right.
about the
Yeah.
right people.
Mhm.
You're
But if
asking
you're asking the wrong
questions that
questions
fits
about
their
the wrong
narrative.
people.
Yeah.
Yes.
If you have the wrong opinion,
Right.
yeah.
Yeah.
And some people don't know how to have honest conversations about things.
Yeah.
Without immediately getting nasty.
Yeah.
And ugly.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I even dealt with it. I was in a group meet for when Liam was in his grade, back when he's in public school, and they went on their field trip to Slitterbond, and it was this whole thing like, oh, we don't want the parents going because we want the kids to engage with each other and whatnot and stuff. And so a couple of parents and I are like, how are they going to keep us from going? It's a public place. I'm going to pay for my own ticket. I'll sit off to the side. I'm not going to engage with my kid, but you're going to have a whole class of 5th graders, with just these teachers as watching them when there's water involved. Like, nope.
Who are usually sitting off to the side on their phones.
Yes. And so we went, and it was eye-opening because it wasn't just closed for our school, all these other schools, and it was open to the public too. And so even the teacher was like, I appreciated you guys coming. It gave me an adult conversation to have, and it was great, eyes and ears to see. Because I was like, someone like, oh, have you seen this kid? I'm like, yeah, they went that way. It was like, I was observing, I wasn't involved, but these parents like, you should have respect. I'm like, you're the idiot for allowing someone to tell you where you could and could not go when it came to your kid.
Yeah, because schools, we want parent involvement, but we want it on our
terms.
way. Yeah, that's exactly right.
Yes.
We don't question what we're doing. We know what we're doing. Do you really?
No. Yeah.
Because I haven't always known what I was doing.
Yeah. Well,
So,
and
I'll be the first to admit that. And I would think that on a field trip, you'd want more eyes.
Right?
That's why we allow adults go on our trip.
Yeah,
we explain to them these are geared towards kids. This is what you're going to experience. Don't complain. Like, we know you paid for it, but don't complain.
Yeah.
And we only had one issue, and that was the very first trip I took, and that was a special case with some New Braunfels people. But ever since then, we've always had adults go on our trip, and they have the best time.
Yeah.
My friends at Ashcrafts are going next summer because they went last year, and the kids, they love the kids. And then my returning traveler, Camila, when I told her the Ashcrafts were coming again, she's like, they are? I said, oh, yeah, and the Albanians from down in New Braunfels, they're going. She goes, they are?
Yeah.
I said, yeah, and she's bringing her husband along.
Yeah.
She's like so excited because it's going to be like a reunion.
Yeah.
Because we get pretty close. We get pretty close, and it makes it more fun, but it also puts more adult eyes.
Yes.
On
especially in
the
a
kids.
foreign country.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Which we're always in touristy areas, but still you're in you have parents that aren't there, and it's always I've had some parents tell me, please take care of my baby. I'm like, ma'am, your baby's my baby. I'm not gonna let anything happen to your kid.
Yeah.
Unless there's a lot of money involved. And they just start laughing like, you're going to split that with me, right? Like no. But
we don't know how they ended up on the other side of the world.
I don't know how they ended up shoving
Exactly.
coal in the boiler room of that steamship, but man, somehow it happened. But yeah, schools, because they'll say, well, here comes that parent.
Yeah. Their reputation precedes them.
Yep.
And I can almost guarantee you that there were people in Wimberley that said that about Ashleigh.
Oh,
over
probably.
Here comes that parent. Who is that? Is that Ashleigh Paine? She's such a pain in the ass.
Yeah.
She's
Prime
so
example.
she's so
Pain in the
horrible.
ass.
Yeah.
It's like, no, that's not being a pain in the butt. That's called being a parent.
My wife loves when people say, "Oh, you're Terry Lee's wife," and she's like,
Well,
how do you deal with him?
Depends, because I get kind of polarizing sometimes. But then I am willing to meet. I do enjoy meeting with people who are, not adversarial, but they kind of see things from a different perspective. Michelle Wynn is one of them, and we grabbed lunch at Chevello's one day, and it was a great conversation. And I think people are always really pleasantly surprised when they're willing to put down their guns and just have a conversation with somebody and humanize all those. All
your
those
wife
folks.
could just show on the video of you running down that hill.
Yeah, me falling down the hill. Yeah, like he actually is an idiot.
Yeah.
So,
I mean, this guy? Yeah, he's
Yeah, chasing a pumpkin. That's me. Yeah.
I knew what was going to happen. Like 2 seconds in that video, your hands were like here. Yeah, she could just show him that. It's like, let me show you a different side of Terry.
Yeah.
Watch this.
Here's the scorpion side.
Yeah. Because, and again, it's real easy to be brave
Yeah.
behind
Yes.
this. It's real easy to be brave behind that. And then when you're in person.
Cyberbullying goes
Yeah.
into adulthood.
Yeah.
Well, and I think it's probably worse because, I've been guilty of this. I can take things to a personal level really quick.
Yeah.
And, as I get further into my faith and realize that when I do those things, God, it makes me feel good. But, man, God
Didn't
sure don't like
accomplish
that.
anything,
I mean, I'm
really.
not accomplishing anything. I'm not winning anything.
Yeah.
It's like we're losing overall. And I think, when I look at it from a teaching perspective and an education standpoint, I go back to something that Lisa said this weekend. Love people where they're at. And people don't, as a society, we don't know how to do that.
No.
We don't know how to love people where they're at. And in our classroom, I have students that have not been coming to class, and I know something's going on. I was talking to one yesterday, and they won't say, and that's fine. I was like, I know you've had a rough year. I know you have things going on, but just understand what I'm going through from my side is that when I see you on Monday and Wednesday, but not on Tuesday, Thursday, I worry about you.
Mm-hmm.
It's not a matter whether you're in my class or not. I worry about you. And the fact that when I'm talking to you, your eyes are watering.
Mm-hmm.
There's things going on.
Right.
And just understand you're not alone.
Yeah.
My door's always open. Whether you're a student of mine or not, my door's always open. And if you need help, we can get you help.
Mm-hmm.
And if you don't need help, then that's fine.
Mm-hmm.
But just understand, you don't have to fight. Whatever you're going through, you don't have to go through it alone.
Right.
We're always here. I said, you're missed when you're not here. I said, and please don't take me giving you a hard time and joking around with you like, oh, well, she can come today, but she can't go. Please don't take that as me being critical of you. That's me telling you, like, I miss you being in my class. And when you're in my class, I know you're safe.
Yeah.
I said, so please understand that. And she's like, well, I thought you didn't like me. I was like, I don't know you enough to dislike you, and you're a student. I said, I thoroughly enjoy you being in my class. So when you're not here, and you're not here consistently, I get concerned.
Right.
And kids aren't used to hearing that.
Yeah. It's that dad in you, too.
Yeah. I said, I have girls.
Mm-hmm.
You know, and if something were going on with them,
Mm-hmm.
I don't hear from Peyton too much. She sends me pictures of the grandkid now. But, like, I can go, you know, before that, I could go 2 or 3 weeks and not hear anything from Peyton.
Is Peyton your favorite now that you got a grandkid? Because I'm the favorite because I contribute the only grandkids.
I would say they're
say
probably on equal standing because when I go on trips, Lindsay stays at my apartment and watches the dogs. And Lindsay's better at staying in touch.
Oh. So am I. So I'm still
you know,
the favorite.
like we go eat and stuff like that. We go out to dinner and stuff, and I'm blessed because my girls are both very grounded. You know, Peyton works at the Connection Church, and they both serve over there. And people always ask, well, you know, so you go to Vertical, but they go to Connection. I'm like, they go to church, man. That's all that matters. I mean, my girls are happy over there. I'm like, are you kidding me?
Yeah.
They have fostered and nurtured their growth. And I said, I just don't ever feel the same over there that I do at Vertical. Mm-hmm. And, you know, being in the men's, you know, being involved with the men at my church, and, you know, it's a lot different. And I just don't feel the same way, but I'm super proud of them. And even to the point, I've seen so much growth in them. This is what Lindsay told me, you know, because people are asking, well, is your daughter dating? It's like, well, I think there's this guy that likes her, but he actually brought me my tire when I had a flat tire, and him and his buddy put it on my car for me. I guess I'm so
Get
old
in with
now.
the dad.
And so
Yeah.
I told her, I said, what about him? She's like, Dad, he's not as far along in his faith journey as I would like him to be.
Aww.
I was like,
Got her head screwed on right.
yeah. And my girls
Eventually.
and my girls struggled in school. Peyton was at Hayes High School, and just the social dynamics.
Mm-hmm.
Peyton's like a fixer. So social dynamics was overwhelming for her. And fortunately for her, she got sick in the spring and asked if she could apply to go to Live Oak Academy, and got picked. And this is what gets me, is people are like, well, you got picked because your mom's a principal. No, it's all done anonymously.
Yeah.
You have to apply. They don't know your name. You're given a number. And you get picked based on your application. And then Lindsay went to Dahlstrom, and then at Johnson. And Lindsay has always had some image issues with herself and some low self-esteem. And she's an introvert. She's very shy, has some anxiety issues. She's anxious. And so different experiences for them. In hindsight, I don't know that Johnson was the best option for her. You know, we were fortunate that we could pick for her to go there because, you know, Kathy worked in the district. But Dahlstrom had issues. This is way back then.
Yeah.
I mean, it had issues, you know, there was bullying. You know, growing up in school, I mean, I'm 54, and when you look back on you know, we bullied then. Kids were bullied then. We just didn't know it was called that.
Well, that and it
But we didn't have phones.
Yes, it literally was done, and you moved on. You know, and now with social media and phones and everything, it carries on for weeks.
Well,
months,
you know that there's laws
Yes.
on the books in the state of Texas that if what happens on social media carries over to school, there's consequences.
Yeah.
But are those consequences ever enforced?
Yeah.
no, rarely.
Yeah.
Unless somebody gets really
If they
physically
were,
hurt or
if
shot.
they were, then maybe we would have 2 students that are still alive today
Right.
at our school.
Right.
I'm not saying it's 100% true that would have, but when someone is posting messages on social media that you need to kill yourself, you're a loser,
Right.
stuff like that.
Well, there's questions why they have the policy to begin with. And if they don't
Right.
enforce it.
I mean, kids are more lonely now than they've ever been. They're more lonely and depressed now than they've ever been, and it's really a product of what they have access to. And it's kind of it's a self-manifesting deal. What the kids and what my daughter wants to do is she would love to get home from school, go up and talk to her buddies on her iPad. So she isolates herself, and then by isolating yourself, you're immersing yourself into these places where you develop image issues, where people say things that you would never say to somebody's face. And so it really is just kind of a vicious circle, is where kids are, and so then they're just much more apt to harm themselves, not care about themselves, not care about others, and just say terrible things.
Yep.
So
Yeah, I mean, I see. Again, I think I'm very blessed with how my girls are, and I'm blessed where I go to church. I see our youth at our church.
Yeah.
Those kids are jacked up, man. They are on fire, and they are supportive of each other.
Yeah.
They're bringing
And
their friends.
They're bringing their friends.
en
Like we,
masse.
on average, we have about 150 kids in our auditorium on a Sunday afternoon, Sunday
Half of them
evening.
probably don't even go to church.
They don't even go to
Yeah.
church there,
Just
and
bring
they're
their
there.
friends.
They're there with
Yeah.
their friends, and I mean that exposure.
Yeah.
And they can't be on their phones. And Pastor Abe and his wife do an amazing job with them. And not to make this all that religious, I'm a firm believer that people are struggling with things. They need a relationship with God.
and you could have a total secular view of that. I mean,
Yeah,
we go to
you
church
could.
as well. We go to Lutheran church, but you could have a totally secular view of that. The kids just want and need community.
Yes.
100%.
Right? Because
They want
our
to feel like
community-
they belong to something.
Yeah, our community when we were growing
Real
up
community,
is
not a
not
digital
a
community.
virtual
Yeah.
community or whatever. But our community when we were growing up, I mean, sure, I had. We went to youth group and stuff like that, but my community was outside of my home.
Yes.
Literally, I
you were
went
playing in
outside.
your, yeah.
Yeah, and
We
so
played-
kids don't
we-
have
Yep.
that tangible
Yeah.
community.
Yeah.
My students ask me, Coach, what'd you do growing up? It's like, man, we
Drank out of the fire, the
Yeah,
the water
faucet.
hose.
Peed in
Drank
the
out of the water
yard.
hose.
rode our bicycles behind the bug machine.
Launched water
behind
balloons
the
at
bug,
each other.
The bug truck and that the city had for the spray for mosquitoes. We'd ride our bikes behind that because it felt like we were driving through the smog. We rode our bikes everywhere. We were gone. We were gone from basically 9 in the morning until 11 at midday.
Yeah.
And then
I mean,
what
they
would you
had-
do? We come home, eat a sandwich with dirty hands, and then we go back out and play. We constantly played.
Yeah, well, I mean, they had the commercials for our parents, like, where are your children, because I had to remind them they had children. We were outside playing. Like,
Yeah.
It's 10
We-
o'clock. Do you know where
yes,
your children are?
exactly.
I mean, we were outside. We were outside playing, so we had that community, and we had that growing up, and and the other part of it is we played youth sports,
Yes.
not club sports. We weren't traveling around spending thousands of dollars so that
Playing with your neighbor's kids.
yeah,
and
so that my
whatnot.
dad could try to relive his
Yeah.
childhood fantasies of being an athlete and jacking up sports.
Yep.
And I got news for people. I mean, there are people that play professional soccer, because that's my sport, for a reason, because they're pretty damn good at it.
Yep.
And in this country, I always tell parents all the time, well, I want them to get a scholarship. I'd like them to go pro. I've got news for you. If your kid were that good already, he would be in an academy.
Mm-hmm.
Somebody would have found him.
Somebody would
Yep.
have found him.
Yeah.
He would be in an academy.
Yep.
Or I said, because let me explain how it works in Europe. They sign kids all the time, bring them in, get them an education, and they play for the junior teams. And then when they see, as they mature, when they see that this, where they were here, is not going to be this, cut them loose.
Yep.
You're done.
Mm-hmm.
Time to go get a job.
Yep.
But you've got an education. And we put too much, we emphasize the wrong things. Just like in school, we emphasize scores and grades. And I love
Star
that,
testing.
and I love that you 85%
Mm-hmm.
before you can move on. And your kids don't cheat.
No, they have to master it. Oh, well, it's funny when you talked about, like, guiding the curriculum and stuff, like when these people went to space. Liam just finished astronomy. He's like, I can tell you 20 reasons they didn't go to space.
Yeah.
And he was like, he goes, first of all, their hair's not floating. They have no mask on. He's like, they've got no compression suits. He's like, one's wearing heels. Like, he's just like, he's like, the door is supposed to go out, not in. He's like, there's no burn marks. He's like, it looked like it was from Temu. He's like, they did not go to space.
They went far enough into the atmosphere that is considered space, but it's not really space.
No.
They weren't outside the atmosphere.
Yeah. He's like,
That's kinda how
astronauts trained forever for this, Mom. They did not go. And I was like, all right.
They got closer than I will ever get, because I'm not going to be in that little tight compartment with a
Yeah.
whole bunch of other people. Because I mean, if I don't get extra leg room on a flight, because like we got our flight information for our trip this summer, so we've been able to get on and find our seats on our flights out, but we haven't been able to get our stuff for United on the way back. United, you need to get with the program. EF, you need to get with the program and
Good
pay for
luck.
our tickets. So I always upgrade because my trip's free. Because I'm a group leader. I got 6 kids signed up, so I'm working though.
Right.
So I always upgrade to extra leg room, exit row seat, because the last thing you need to do is see Daryl Faulks on the news
You're gonna
in a
get
straight
TikTok
jacket.
famous.
Be on a straight jacket. Somebody's beating on the engine. Oh my god! Because I can't sit with a seat.
That mother back there is
Yeah.
not real.
I can't exactly. I can't do that. But what's funny is, in my classroom, I'll talk to my kids about this. I will literally have these conversations with them. We don't talk about world history stuff all the time. As I'm walking around, and again, there's a fine line that you have to follow, because you don't want to do too much of that. You want to still focus on curriculum. And if teachers do that, they get in trouble. Well, you're being too personal. No, we're talking.
We're relating.
So how can I find out about this student? How can I find out about them if I'm not walking around,
yeah.
kind of seeing what they're doing? Because when they have free time in my classroom, after we get done with everything, they can have their phones out. And as I'm walking around, I take a look. Like, what are y'all watching? What are y'all laughing at? So this happened yesterday with a couple of my students. They were over there laughing, and I was like, what are y'all doing? And they're like, Coach, you got to come see this. And they're showing me they were taking pictures of each other with a weird lens.
It's the 0.5 or whatever it
Yeah,
is. My
and they're
daughter
doing
does.
pictures with their lens, and it matches up with like characters.
Yes. Yes.
And one of them was Despicable Me, and I was like, "That's hilarious." Another one was another cartoon, and I was like, "That is so spot on." Hey, Coach, let us do you. And I was like, you want to take this course again next year? But I mean, they were just laughing, and you can tell that they enjoy being able to do that. Like, hey, it's during flex time. Hey, we're going to go out in the hall and do a TikTok. I'm like, just do it in here, because you do it in the hall. These people here don't understand you're just doing a TikTok.
Yeah.
They think you're being disrupted. Just do it in here. And I sit there and I'm just watching them. I'm like, y'all are idiots. No, just go on. Keep doing it. Keep on going. And I was like, y'all are so stupid. I'm like, y'all, I don't think I don't think you have the core strength to be able to do that. Because they're doing the one where they got to pull up their leg.
Yeah.
I was like, I don't think you have the core strength, and I just don't think you have the upper body strength. Like, man, Coach, you're harsh. I was like, facts are facts. So we joke around. They're not used to that.
Yeah.
And this is what I've told our interim principal. I said, these kids are not used to being around adults that foster those kind of relationships.
Right.
So let me ask you, is it because there's a lack of men teachers that are coaches now? Are there less going into the profession? Because
I think there's less people.
when I think back to my childhood and the teachers that I
had a
had,
lot of male
the most
teachers.
of them that were the most fun were the
Yes.
men, the coaches.
But the perception of teaching has always been a female profession, especially at the elementary school.
Yeah.
Because if you have a man work at the elementary school, there's always those people like, why is he working at elementary school?
Yeah,
Why is he working around little kids? Well, because he's better at working with little kids.
right.
I mean, I'll be honest with you.
Not
like,
everybody's a pervert.
Yeah.
you know?
Well, and
Why do you have to paint a broad brush?
and this
Right.
is something I
What is the statistics of female teachers doing inappropriate things?
Right.
well lately
Yeah, a lot
it's
of
been
those.
very high.
Yes. Can we chat GPT that?
Well, and it's like, Pastor Doug said the other day when, Sean told him to start working in V-Kids. He's like, man, I don't work on these kids. But he did it. He was obedient. And it totally changed his perspective on servant leadership of being around these little kids. And then there's payoffs down the road. And, for my high school kids, I don't care if I'm popular. I don't care if you like me. I don't lose sleep. I go home to 2 amazing dogs, and I have great friends. So whether you like me or not is inconsequential. Can you come in my classroom and feel comfortable learning? And the rest we can figure out. And I always tell them this can be a lifelong relationship if that's what you want. Whenever you graduate, you can leave my class and go down the way and be like, I don't ever want to talk to him again. Or if you want to come and see me next year because you're struggling in U.S. history, you can. And it's usually the kids that didn't like me very much. They come back. And I've had a couple of parents reach out this year, just think like you were my kid's favorite teacher. I was like, well, the standards must be very low. I'm self-deprecating that way. I don't like taking compliments, and to me,
here we are wanting to clone him and make more Daryl.
I know.
That's the last thing we need to do.
I don't know. You're a pretty good teacher. I think.
I'm good at building relationships with kids.
That's what matters.
And I'm good at getting kids to feel comfortable in my class. I have a couple of young people that are super duper shy at the beginning of the year, and they're way more vocal now. And because they feel comfortable and they interact. And I just think that in a classroom like mine, especially for social studies and history, if kids, you can find something to relate to them.
Yeah.
They can get it. And that's why we do the visuals. Because like we were watching the Budapest episode. They're like, y'all are going there in 2 years. I'm like, yeah. And we showed them a picture, an overhead picture on Google Maps of what Auschwitz-Birkenau looks like right now. And they're like, y'all going to be there in 2 years? I said, we could be there in 2 years. Pay for the trip and go.
FOMO.
Yeah. And exposing them to things like that and having these conversations and figuring out what they like. Well, like, what do you want to do? I have kids in AP that don't want to go to college. Their parents want to go to college. And so it's when I tell them at the beginning of the year, stay off their back about grades. Let them figure out what it is they want to do.
Yep.
Don't pigeonhole them into what you think they should do. Let them figure it out. And they don't have to have it all figured out by the time they graduate, but they need to have a plan.
Right.
And as schools, we put so much pressure on kids. Your kids aren't going to have to go through that. Yours will, because they're going to pressure them. What are you going to do?
Yeah.
You're 15 years old. What do you want to do with your life? Man, I'm 54, and sometimes I don't know what I want to do. I'm getting close to retirement. It out. I'm getting close to retirement. One of y'all shared the deal about the AI schools. Was it you?
Yeah.
That's intriguing to me.
Yep.
It's the future, man.
I tell you what, if I could win the lottery and build my property and go adopt all the old dogs, I'd set up a couple of AI schools. Because, I mean, think about it. Kids that are doing school at home, whether it's through homeschool or online high school, are not suffering psychology-wise, from the issues that kids face every day. It's a fashion show, and it's a popularity drive, and it's vote for me.
Yes.
I want to be this. I want to be the prom king, and I want to be this, and I want to be that.
It's narcissism.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, and it
starts young.
I watched the video on that school in Austin. I think her name is Mackenzie Price, who created it and stuff. And at the end of the day, the kids get together, they regroup and get together, and they say positive things about each other, like words of affirmation. I'm
Stuart Smalley style.
Yes, I'm like, if kids did that nowadays, you wouldn't have so much of the bullying and all of that going on.
We have so many issues in school that stem from things that are outside of our control. We worry why so many of our kids are so angry. Well, let's go look at home. And I brought this up at our men's group last week, not past Thursday, but last week. We talk about, broken homes. And kids get mad at parents if one of the parents isn't around.
Yep.
It's typically single mom homes. And if it's a son, they're mad at their mom because her dad's not around.
Yep.
Even though the dad's probably a butthole. And probably doesn't need to be around.
They'll put the dad on a flipping pedestal.
Yeah, but they're like, they take it out on mom because that's the parent that's there. I said, we see it all the time. And parents try to be their kids' friends.
Yep.
You don't need to be your kids' friends. You're the adult. And, I don't try to be my kid's friend.
No.
And my kids are young adults. I'm still your dad.
Right.
I told Peyton, I said, you might have a kid now, but you're still my kid. So you can't talk to me in certain ways. And she doesn't. She really doesn't. But we have major parenting issues because we have parents that don't know how to parent
No.
because they're having kids at a young age. I mean, I didn't become a parent until much later.
Well, and I think it's just as much as the phone is a distraction for kids, it's a distraction for parents. How many parents are consumed with their phones that they don't want to set it down and actually go parent their child?
Well, yeah, and how many kids are
That would be exactly 46%.
Yeah, and their relationship with their parents is with the back of a phone.
Exactly.
You know,
I would
read
say
one
that
time.
number's low.
Yeah.
I would say that
Yeah.
number's low.
Yeah.
Because for some of the kids don't see their parents. When we have parents come up to school to sign their kid out, they have to sit in the lobby. Guess what they're doing?
On their phone.
On their phone. And when they walk out of the building,
Antisocial behavior.
yeah, when they walk out of the building, instead of talking to their kid, what are the parents doing? They're on their phone, and guess what the kid's doing? On their phone.
Yeah.
And then parents get
You
mad
go to
at
any
their
restaurant,
kid.
you do it
Get
too,
off your
too.
phone and talk to me.
Right.
You've been on your phone.
Yeah. Well, you go and take your kid to the pediatrician, and how many signs it says, like, when you're with the doctor, you're not on your phone, you know? And then there was on the Joe Rogan where they talked about it, where some guy took images of people on their phone and removed the phones out of the image.
Yeah, I saw that.
And how
yeah.
lonely it looked. And I was
Yeah.
like, that is so sad. Everybody's just like this.
Yeah. Everybody's just like,
Or they're in bed away from each other looking.
Yeah.
I'm like, what?
Well, yeah, we were in Switzerland this past summer, and we're standing up on this hill, and it was super cloudy. So we couldn't really see the things we wanted to see because we went to this lookout point, and it was like super cloudy. And get over there by the edge, I'm like, I'm not getting any closer because that cable don't look like it's going to support my big weight. And so as we're walking back, we walk inside to this little store, and I bought a sausage roll and a beer. And I go stand outside, and the clouds are starting to lift. And you can see down in the valley. It's absolutely gorgeous. And so I'm standing there, and I'm taking pictures, and I go stand by one of our travelers who's on their phone. And I go,
Yeah.
look,
Yeah.
get off your freaking phone and take some
Yes.
pictures and send this to your parents tonight when you get to the hotel. Oh, my parents paid for me to use my phone every day. Then send them pictures now.
Yeah.
These are the things your parents want you to be texting. Well, because he was texting his mom and dad. I said, send him a picture of this. Sorry, Mom and Dad, I can't talk to you right now.
Yeah.
right.
Look at where we're at.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Send them pictures of that. Don't text a whole lot. And so I actually kind of like it when our kids go and their parents don't pay the extortion fee to be able to use their phones every day. Even though we do want them when they get free time, make sure you're with someone that has a working cell phone. I pay the extortion fee of $12 every day because I
Like going on a cruise.
need to be able to have people talk to me. And I'm like, take lots of pictures because you don't need Wi-Fi to take pictures. Take lots of pictures. When we get to the hotel, you get on the Wi-Fi and send them pictures. We also have kids that are the exact opposite. They get over there and they don't ever talk to their parents.
Oh yeah.
They had their phone.
Escape.
They had their phone and they don't. And like we'll get messages on our Facebook group because we make a Facebook group for our trip.
Is my kid still alive?
Yeah, that's exactly what we had 2 years ago. Is my son still with you? We have not heard because we tell them the moment we get there, the first night we get to the hotel, because we land, we go right to our first site. This parent, we tell them, as soon as you get to the hotel, get on the Wi-Fi and call your parents. Text your parents, let them know that we got here okay and that we're safe. Even though we post in the group that we're safe. That your parents want to hear from you.
Yeah.
Is my son still with y'all?
Yeah.
Yes, ma'am, he is. Because we haven't heard from him since y'all got there. And this is like 3 days in. And they told us, like, when he gets somewhere, he checks out.
Yeah. We
And
had an amazing babysitter like that where we had to warn people when we like would refer her out. I'm like, okay, just so you know, she's gonna keep her phone on the counter and she's not gonna check it. But she's with our kids, engaging with them.
If
spending
something
time
is
with them.
going on that y'all need to know about, she'll let you know.
Yes.
Right.
And so I'm like, don't panic. She's amazing, but she's that person. She does not check her cell phone.
Well, and
Like,
it's funny because this kid, I gave him my cell. I said, call your parents right now. Coach, I'll do it when I get call them now. So he called them again, and we never heard back from the parents again. He talked to them, and they were fine. Got on the phone. It's like, Coach, thank you, appreciate that. It wasn't even my kid; it was one of the Canyon kids. And we got done. And,
yeah.
It's funny how kids are so different. And then we have kids that like get super homesick. I'm like, you need this trip worse than anybody. Your parents are mother and Mr.
Yes.
Chicken over there. You
Yes.
need to get out from underneath the wings and
Yes.
experience life a little bit. But I mean, it's parents are worse. It's learned behavior.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Parents
Yep.
check out. It's a real easy babysitter to be able to do whatever it is they're doing.
Oh, I would love
I was guilty of it when our kids were little, but
Yeah,
you know,
same thing.
20 years
Oh, you
ago.
want to watch The Wiggles?
Yeah.
All right, we'll watch that. We're just not gonna watch some Teletubbies, man. I
Yeah.
can't do it.
when
That.
they were little is when the iPads first started coming out, but there was like a kid version of it, Leapfrog.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
They still
There's
make those?
Amazon Kindle too.
Yeah.
Kindle,
Yeah.
and then so they
Kindle
really
for
didn't
kids.
have the devices like this, and we were out
Fire
doing stuff when they were really
Yeah.
little all
Fire
the time.
tablets.
But then the iPad Minis came out, and but they were already
You know,
elementary and above.
Avery,
at that
my
point.
my Avery, she went to a camp. They left on Wednesday and came back
Camp
Friday.
Champions.
They went to Camp Champions, and my wife picked her up, and she's there's no electronics while they're there. No
Right.
need to talk to mom and dad when you're gone for 2 half days and a full day.
Mm-hmm.
But she said she came back and she was like noticeably brighter, engaging, and just it's like
Yes.
I mean she
energy.
truly was detoxing for
Right.
48 hours and just made such a difference. And I just think we've just grown accustomed to seeing that slow downfall of the kids, and we just kind of they're just growing up. Yeah, just because they're growing up doesn't necessarily mean they have to grow away from you.
Yes.
And them just not to
And they don't need to grow
love
up
their
so
childhood.
fast.
Yeah, there's nothing really that fascinating.
Well, I
It's
think
just
that
the
part of that
dopamine
has
hit.
to do with the culture of competition through grades, sports, travel ball, that kind of thing. There's always the need for the kid to do better than their other friends, or they're going to get left behind, or they're not going to get the college that they want, they're
or
not
be
gonna
on a
get-
certain travel
or
team.
they're not
Well,
going to get first chair in band. You know that?
yeah.
I mean, it goes all the way.
And
to
it's fed
everybody.
into this whole instant gratification too.
Yeah.
So like the kids instantly want to excel in something and instantly want to be amazing in something. It's like, no, that's not how this works.
They're losing
you
the
know?
fun factor. is what
Yes.
they're losing.
Well,
Yes.
and it's and we get a lot at the high school. Coach, I got to lock. They like using the term lock in. I got to lock in.
I got to lock in.
I got to lock in.
William says it.
Hey, I've locked in. I've locked in. So Coach, I got to lock in because this new group of kids coming up next year, man, they're really good at this or really good at that. I'm like, I get what you're saying. Just be the best version of yourself, man.
Michael Phelps never compared himself to anybody else.
No, he's the standard. Mm-hmm. I mean, he was the standard. I mean, think about it.
Like a 10-foot wingspan. Or
Yes.
Yeah,
Ate
and-
like 40,000 calories a day or something.
Yeah.
yeah. Well, you have to when you're a swimmer.
Extra
I mean,
large heart.
But I mean, it's a constant.
Part merman.
It's a constant comparison of I want to be like them, and again, I think a lot of that comes from parents. I mean, how many times if you have multiple kids, why can't you be more like your brother? Why can't you be more like your sister? And parents foster that early on, and it's sad because I have kids in my class that come from multiple children homes, and that's all they've heard growing up. Mm-hmm. And it goes back to, kids, you complain about your parents being involved, but at least your parents are involved. You have kids in your classroom that wish that they had that.
Yeah.
And
Right.
and I also tell when I had this conversation with parents to get off your kids back about their grades, Terry. Just let them be kids and understand that failure's okay.
Mm-hmm.
Failure's how you
You
learn.
learn just as much.
You learn more.
Yeah.
Failure's the opportunity to start out with new information.
forward.
And I was like, when you allow your child to fail, you allow them to fail up.
Yeah.
So we talk about it in my class, and that's why if you don't do the format right, you get a 0. Well, I entered a 0 in the grade book. Guess who's going to see that?
Mom
and Dad. Why'd you get a 0? I don't know. Look at the note that I put on your Google form. Oh, I didn't do it the right format. Are you going to be able to fix it? Well, Coach said we can fix it.
Then fix it.
Then fix it. So it's motivation to fix it. And then they come to me and they're like, why'd I get a 0? Okay, is this the right format? Short answer responses should be 3 sentences. You have 5 or 6. You're not going to get points on the AP exam for that. There's a standard. And can I fix it? What do you think?
Yes and
Then
yes.
why are you asking me questions you already have answers to? Do you need constant reassurance? And they're like, so I'm not your mom and dad. I'm not going to constantly reassure you. You know you can fix it. Go fix it. Here's the due date to turn it in to be regraded. You got to come outside of class time. So quit asking me questions you already know answers to.
Yep.
Because as parents, what do? We constantly remind our kids.
You harp on them.
Fix your back. That's why as a coach, when I coached, we get on the bus, check your bag, make sure you have everything. Never fails. Coach, I don't have any shin guards. Well, I guess you play tonight.
Yeah.
You don't have shin guards? Not my job.
Yep. And you learn one time from that lesson to make sure that you pack your stuff properly. Like, I missed out on that game because I didn't have my shin guards, and now I'm going to pack the night prior.
Well, and what usually happens is a teammate. I don't play a lot. You can borrow mine.
Yeah.
Which is an ultimate teammate.
Yes.
I love kids like that. But,
teamwork.
it's kids are so hamstrung today by the time they get to me, either from absentee parenting or there's not standards put in place and held to.
Yeah.
This is what I've seen. Like, I have kids in my class that, Coach, why don't parents just hold their kids accountable? My mom holds me accountable. I was like, oh, I know. I met your mom. She does. And mom has even said, he admires you. I'm like, that's a scary thought. Let's not go there. Let's admire people like Gandhi. Well, maybe not even him. He had his issues too.
Let's admire Jesus.
Yeah, let's admire God and Jesus. Easy. I said, but it's she agrees that grades are not that important. It's learning that matters the most. And again, in schools, we are dropping the ball. It's like an assembly line machine.
Yes. The kids are numbers and a dollar sign.
Well, and that's one thing we didn't really touch on is kind of the dollar sign, right? And why so many people are why vouchers are so appealing to so many parents. And I think, I don't know, maybe we all agree, but I'm pro-choice when it comes to the education, but what came before us was just garbage, right? And I feel like they just said, all right, well, this is for the pro-choice folks, and we call it a day, we accomplished it. And I don't think, I haven't really run across anybody who is really a fan of it.
In the homeschool world, I don't know one person.
Yeah.
No. And again, that's when our politicians aren't voting according to their constituents. Yeah. And since we all met, my opinion on vouchers has changed.
100% to what?
I was totally against it. 100% against it. And I still feel in some way, shape, form, or fashion, it's being set up to help assist and give money back to rich donors. I still believe that. But I also believe that people were misinformed whenever we're bringing in people from out of state and how their voucher program helped them, because not every state's public education system is set up like ours. Like, you need a voucher program in Louisiana because their public schools suck.
Yep. Same
They're absolutely horrible. Same in a lot of other states. In this state, Texas has an opportunity to make a voucher program be a huge win-win for everybody, and whether it ends up being that way or not, because typically there's one group of people that screws it up. It's called politicians.
Yep.
Abbott up there and Dan Patrick can screw up a fart in a dust storm like nothing else, because they make it political and they do what they're being told to do instead of doing what's best for Texans. And that's a problem I have with it. But I agree that there are, if people are being allowed to have an option and they need assistance, let's give it to them. And if there's parameters in place that protect them, that if I go from here to there, but there's already things coming out that are troubling.
Yes.
About how public school districts are going to have to pay for special ed testing for people that might be going to the voucher program. That's wrong.
Yeah.
That's wrong.
Well, yeah.
But I don't know who should pay for that.
No.
But the state's sitting on all this money
that they won't
won't let go. We have this rainy day fund that can't be over a certain amount, and you could use that money for other things. Or let's legalize marijuana.
Yeah.
And let's take that money and put that into a voucher program. Let's have a real voucher program.
Right.
And let's start
gambling.
Well,
people are spending money on marijuana anyway. They might as well get taxed for it like they're doing in Colorado and use it for education, like they did the lottery supposedly.
Because here in Texas, and my students in Elgin, I love my students from Elgin. They did such a good job on this assignment. When our final exam was make a state law, and I allowed them to pick marijuana. So they couldn't pick a law that was less stringent than federal law, but I let them pick marijuana because states were passing that. And this is what in their research, they found that the state of Texas in the first year could generate over $200 million in tax revenue alone from legalizing marijuana.
Mm-hmm.
And they're trying to go the opposite way.
We're going the opposite way.
CBD illegal.
Freaking Nancy Reagan, just say no program.
Yeah.
Well, that's a lot of it. What it is, it's a legacy of we felt we have politicians that feel like they know what's best for us.
Right. Oh yeah.
Hey Dan, how's that prescription drug pad working out for you that you stole?
We picked that up on a whole other episode.
It's just we have an opportunity. Instead of we've always been a state that led, and we're following right now.
Yes.
And we have in our Constitution free public education, but if the system's not working, a lot of that's because of policy by politicians. And we want to do this. Let's legalize marijuana. Let's start there. Let's take that revenue, start with some of the rainy day money until we build up that chest, and then use that money to have like a real program, to have a real voucher program that can incorporate, that's open to everybody instead of select few.
Yes.
Because what if I want to send my kids to a private school or homeschool and I want to apply for that program, I don't qualify because I don't meet the criteria or the base level of what politicians have decided. How do you know what's best for my family? Right. You can't even do what's best for the state.
Yep.
Right.
And have this true voucher program that's going to be beneficial.
There's only so much money in this program, so it's going to be really the first come, first serve is actually designated for the private school kids and kids with special needs.
And private schools have to opt into it, and they won't. It's just it's no different than allowing homeschool kids to play high school sports.
Yep.
Districts have to opt in.
Yep.
And a private school would have to opt in, and private schools won't.
Yeah, Regents doesn't need your money.
No.
Regents doesn't need the state's money.
No, St. Michael's doesn't either.
Yeah.
And most of the schools in San Antonio, St. Paul, John Paul II up in Dallas, they don't need your money. They don't need it. You know, these other schools.
And I don't even understand why the parents that have their kids in public school are even like for this and are in private school or for this, because it's going to raise the population and student body count at that school. So your like small classroom size is going to get bigger. And so what you're paying for, what you thought was one-on-one is no longer there.
Well, and it's really like a knee-jerk reaction. We go from here all the way to here.
Yes.
And it's all, like I always tell the kids, somewhere in the middle is the truth. Right. And that's where we have to find it. And somewhere with this voucher deal, there's a sweet spot that can be found that's going to be appealing to everybody. And it's, we got to have these conversations that we don't make it political. And somewhere out there is again, I just think that Texas is really dropping the ball here because we have so many, our politicians here are so polarizing, and they make it about this, that, or the other, and they shove it down our throats. And the people getting screwed are the kids. Yep. Because, let's have better training for teachers. Let's revamp teacher education programs in colleges, and let's actually, instead of focusing on Bloom's taxonomy and all this other bull crap, let's teach teachers how to figure out their teaching style.
But what's interesting to me about this, the whole conversation is largely public schools' reaction to vouchers and private schools. It's kind of like they become like a cat. They're like a cornered cat. Instead of looking at the ideas that are being thrown around and saying, man, maybe it's the way we've always done it. Instead of saying like, man, they're doing some interesting things that maybe we should adopt and make our program better. They're saying, no. You don't have a teacher certification, so you're not you've never subbed in the school, so
you're just a realtor.
Qualified.
Yeah, you haven't been.
Ashleigh, you're just a realtor.
Yeah,
you have a podcast. It's like really good
about it.
It's like the Douglas Murray argument. From
I like when I had to come back on one of your posts. Just like someone was like, "Yeah, everybody should have to, volunteer in a school," and I was like, "Yeah, I did, and that's why I subbed. Now I homeschool."
Yeah, but I mean, just like it's attractive for parents to go and take a different direction with their kids. Imagine how many great teachers would enter the field if we created attractive avenues for them as well. Hey, I mean, you're a fantastic teacher. Maybe you left for a little while because the whole arena sucks. But maybe somebody out there, some enterprising private entity is creating a school that's really geared for you, for the types of students that you want.
Right.
In my mind, that's really kind of school choice in a nutshell.
Yeah.
Is let me take my kids to an arena that allows them to learn best. And I bet
Yeah.
you'll invite a lot of really solid teachers along the way.
Yeah, 100%. And homeschool kids can take AP exam. So, like, and they go take it at the school in their attendance zone. And this is why I've offered in that homeschool group, like, man, I can help your kid in AP. I can help prepare your kid. I don't want to teach your kid AP, but I can help prepare your kid for the AP exam.
Right.
I have resources that can do that because, you know, you could find those resources yourself. But I also have a College Board login as an educator, and I can add them to my classroom.
Well, and in the homeschool arena, there's plenty of programs out there that do dual credit. So by the time your kid is done with high school, they have their AA from their associate's
As a
degree.
homeschool kid, that's
Yeah.
crazy to
And
me.
which we have. We
Amazing.
have early college, but you have
Yeah.
to apply to get in there.
Yeah.
And you can graduate. I have a former player of mine that graduated last year from Seguin, and she was in the early college program and started school at Texas State, just finished her first year, graduated college with a bachelor's. She has her
Yeah.
degree.
Yeah.
Wow.
That's amazing.
And she is absolutely
19 years old?
Yeah.
Wow.
She's absolutely amazing. And
Yep.
I think she's going into nursing. And, you know, and again, I'm sure I would have no problem helping homeschool people with anything related to academics. But again, we have this,
It's tribalistic.
yeah, because I guarantee you for every one person that's a homeschool parent, it's like, man, I appreciate that post, man. It's really nice. He's offering to help. He's a public school teacher. He's been doing this long. He's old. He's willing to help out. There's 5 to 7 others like,
Think you're the enemy.
this guy's an enemy, man.
Yeah.
He's trying to get in. He's
Right.
going to try to turn them and bring them back. Have no, like,
Turn 'em.
yeah, he's trying to make them drink the Kool-Aid, man. We're down in Jonestown.
Trying to get him in his cult.
Yeah, trying to get them in his cult, man. The public education.
Well,
Because look, there are people, there are those of us in public education, we know how jacked up it is. We know how jacked up it is. 100%. This is why I step foot in room B305 at Seguin High School and do my freaking job.
Yep.
I teach every day.
Well, and
you-
there's more and more figuring it out too. Like I see all over social media of these teachers, especially high school, middle school.
There's a
level.
lot of former teachers
Yes,
in those
and
groups.
they know what it is, and like I'm not doing this with my kids, so they decide to go and homeschool their kids.
they're
Well,
walking
and-
away. We see so much of that happening in all kinds of
Well, and in this
demographics,
group,
right?
that she's a moderator of, again, it's both fortunate and unfortunate. I know a lot of people through teaching. Y'all have a wide variety of elementary, pre-K, elementary, middle school, and high school former teachers or current teachers
Yep.
that are in this group.
Yep.
And man, we go down and look at the post, people offering to help. Offering to help because, I mean, you have family members that know history and can help out with that, but would they know how to teach your son or daughter how to write for the AP exam?
No.
Well,
Yeah.
I'm your dude on that.
Yeah, I'll be
'cause,
calling you.
Yeah, I like really nice, expensive bourbon.
You know, and Chad can relate.
So I mean, and for me, and I think this has probably been a big shift for me over the past several years, because it's about doing what's best for kids,
Yes.
and that's been one of my shifts in my ideas about vouchers. My thing with watching the politics of it is when I see that it's going to happen, like here it's coming. Okay, it's coming.
Yeah.
So
It's here.
it's no longer, I'm going to fight this. I'm going to do this. I'm going
it's
to go
no longer
against
debate.
that. I'm okay. So it's here. So let's look at how we work together,
Right.
Because at the end of the day, if we're not doing what's best for kids,
Yeah.
then what are we doing?
Yep.
If you're raising kids and doing homeschool to be productive citizens, and we're not, because we're not really not. I mean, look at it. Watch Charlie Kirk.
Yes.
God,
You want to
Oh
see.
my gosh.
You want to
so
see.
alarming. Like
You want to see
When he goes to the
why.
college campuses.
You want to see why history and teaching about history and government are important. look at some of these people on there.
On college campuses.
Yes.
Prestigious universities.
Even at A&M.
Yeah.
Yes.
Some of these people that got up and speak, and again, it goes back to the better for people to think you're a fool than open up your mouth and move all down.
Yes.
I mean, and how...
Which we do all the time here.
Yes.
Well, I mean, which he and Charlie does a good job of handling those people and uses logic and Christianity. And they're mind blown.
That's what I keep talking about on the page when I talk about the product is poor. You know, some people are like, you call children
Kids are not
products.
a product, right?
I'm saying you're dumb. You know, I'm not saying that a child is a product, you idiot.
No, the
right?
product you're
right.
producing.
He can say this now because all the black people won't ever see this.
Yeah. You know, like
all the people that have blocked him.
Let it out, Terry.
Just this idea, the product is poor. And you have some people on there, I'm not going to name names, but you have some people on there that are just in love. They love the school district like MF. Yeah, they love the school district as much as they love like their favorite sports team or their spouse or whatever. I'm like, how are you a fan of the school district? What a weird thing.
Yes.
And then for you to be proud of what
of subpar results.
Yes.
Yeah, you know, and well, prove it. I could prove it, you know. Empirically, we could prove it.
There's numbers released by the TEA that prove it.
Or you can go watch Charlie Kirk and say, is that kid, are you proud of that kid? No, he's a freaking idiot. Well, product of public education.
Yes.
I can quite guarantee it.
Well, and I'm a product of public education, but
Me too.
I also grew up in a time period. I'm not going to throw myself in there because we didn't have to take tests to graduate.
Yeah.
I graduated high school in '89. I'm an old dude. So my teachers could teach Socratic thinking.
Yeah.
We didn't have to take a test. We took the California Achievement Test as a measure of where you were academically. We didn't have to take a test to pass to graduate. So my teachers, when we were in English and we're doing Animal Farm or, you know, All the President's Men and we're in history and we're learning about, you know, the Cold War and stuff like that. We did activities that involved Socratic thinking, where teachers made us think for ourselves.
Yes, critical thinking.
We had critical thinking skills. And I would say that my graduating class, I would say all the way, you graduated when?
High school?
Yeah.
03.
03?
03.
2003.
Yes, sir.
Yeah.
Shut up.
In the 2000s. We're from the 1900s.
I'm not going to ask Ashley that question because that's dangerous for guys to ask that.
Oh,
three.
But did y'all have to take a test? Did y'all toss test? Okay.
Toss, yeah.
So you had teachers teaching to a test.
Yes.
I teach to a test. I teach to the AP exam. But I go over content that we're supposed to go over, and I teach them how to do the test. I don't teach them
how to take a test.
I teach them how to do the test. And so there's a big difference. We have teachers teaching to a test.
Yep.
Well, this is what you need to know for STAR. And they're leaving out other things. We didn't have that. We could talk about all these other things. And that's one of the things I've loved about teaching AP is I'm not hamstrung by teaching TEKS. In our state board needs to not be an elected position. Because when you bring politics in it, you're not allowed. You're allowing people's political viewpoints to shape curriculum.
And you invite corruption.
Corruption, and then we can't teach it like that because that makes us look bad.
Right.
Well, because we were bad.
Yeah.
It's history.
I got news for people.
Yeah.
I got news for people. Historically speaking, as a historian, for a country to be around as short a period of time as we have been, we have jacked up a lot of things around the world.
Right.
Look at it.
Yep.
Look at the things
To
that
be
we've
fair,
done.
England was doing a good job of that before
England,
us. They were
imperialism,
conquering the world.
imperialism,
and jacking everything up. We
But
just
think about
did
it.
it on the other side.
Who took their place after World War One?
Us.
And they're
that's
welcome
not-
for it.
Well, and that's not
They're like, we're not the bad guys anymore. They are.
Well, it's like my professors at college said. He goes, "That's not all American. Those are facts. That's not being anti-U.S.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's being facts."
Yep.
Because I got news for you.
Facts over feelings.
The borders are said it.
Tom
There's
Harmon.
there's a reason why people want to come to the United States
Right.
because it is the best country in the world.
181 countries, he said.
181.
In the last 4 years, people from 181 different countries, almost every country in the world, came to the United States illegally.
Oh my God.
Have you listened to it?
I have not listened to that one
And
yet.
people are like, y'all are a terrible country, you're racist, you're awful, but 181
Everybody's
different
trying to get in.
Everybody's trying to get
of
in.
different
Fast
races.
Yeah.
came to the
Everybody's
United
trying to
States.
get in.
Trying to be a victim. I love it.
Yeah.
Can't wait
And
to be a
I-
They
victim.
were using the
well-
CB1 app
Yes.
to register to have a plane fly them into the country.
VIP status.
So, and here's my thing with people that, and again, it's so important that we teach this stuff so that kids understand this is how government's supposed to work. Here's how it's really working. This is what we should be doing. Is that people that want to complain, okay, go to Syria.
Yes.
Right.
Or better yet, you don't like what's going on in Jerusalem or in Israel? Go.
Yep.
Go substitute in Gaza.
I know.
Oh,
you have no idea unless you substitute.
And by the way,
Go rebuild houses in the Ukraine.
yeah. And by the way, when you go to Israel, don't let them know you're a Christian because they'll put you in jail.
Yep.
Yeah.
Because they don't like Christians over there. There's Jews, Muslims. In fact, the Muslims are more accepting of Christians than the Jewish people are.
Mm-hmm.
I bet they like Christian money though.
They do.
Yeah.
Also, don't tell them that you're gay over there.
We're about to run out of time on that card and that camera, and you have to get to a softball game, right?
Volleyball.
Volleyball game.
Indoor sport.
Yes.
Thank goodness.
Hey, HVAC.
And we got to save something for the next
Where are y'all
episode.
playing at?
In San Marcos.
At the high school?
No, the Texas Serve Academy.
Okay.
Yeah.
We got time.
Don't be using those public school facilities for your for your
It's
homeschool kids. For your homeschool kids.
Do you want to answer this question real quick to wrap it up? Each one of you?
Which one is it?
Your final thoughts? For you, it'd be one piece of advice for parents considering homeschooling?
Yes, one piece of advice.
I think you hit it on the nail on the head a minute ago when you said go substitute
Yeah.
at a school.
Yeah, I would say go substitute
And join your Facebook group.
Yeah. And like don't feel like you're overwhelmed by any of it. Don't feel like you're not, adequate to do the job, that you're not capable of doing it. There's plenty of people that are doing it that have resources. Like it is a club. We're all in it together and there's so many amazing curriculums out there for you. It's not like what it used to be. Yes. And so there's ones that teach you Latin and whatnot. There's co-ops. And so I feel like, public school for some reason feels like it's a one size fits all. I have 3 kids. It's definitely not.
Right.
And so with homeschooling, I'm able to, critique and curve the program to fit each kid where they all excel. So,
Yep.
So for you, don't feel like you're overwhelmed. I think you would be amazing at it. So,
Well, thank you so much.
yes. And if you need help, I got you.
No,
Our
I think-
Averys can go to school together.
Until your kids block you on their social media.
Yeah, well, they can screw themselves. I'm about to be really unpopular with my oldest, so I don't care what she thinks about me anyways. She'll come back around.
So for Terry, one thing you change about Texas public schools?
I guess I'll make it 2 is that I would like to kind of re-elevate the place of academics in school. I just see so much other noise that schools and school districts seem to elevate into that space, and somewhere along the way we just seem to not care by and large about
Reading,
are these
writing, and
kids
arithmetic.
are these kids
Government.
getting good educations, and then the other one goes back to what you were saying earlier. I would just love if we really put an emphasis on critical thinking and the types of things that are going to make our kids succeed in life, because some of the things that we're going to learn and that I really care that our kids learn about aren't going to do a damn thing for them later in life. But if a kid can understand, form an opinion, understand why they have that opinion, and be able to defend it.
Critical thinking.
Yeah, there's nothing
Bring
you
it
can't
back.
do. There's nothing in life that you
Right.
can't do. No situation that you can't get yourself out of if you're able to think critically. And so the emphasis on that, I feel like, is, at least 50% of what our education system should be doing. And I think it's doing 0.
Yeah.
Yeah, and it kind of goes back, learning about early river valley civilizations. Well, here's what they did. Okay, why is that important?
Right.
Why?
That's what they need to know.
Why?
Why?
All that.
Why?
And
Those are the
kids
best
used to-
questions. to ask.
when kids first start learning about the world as toddlers, they're like, why? Why this? Why
Awesome
that? Why
question.
that?
Yes.
Why is the best
you
question to
encourage
ask?
it.
Oh,
Yeah.
yes, for sure. My youngest, yesterday we were sitting at Liam's football games, 4 games, and he just asked me all these questions. Why this? Why this? Why this? I'm like,
Where we
I don't
all
know the
playing- where we
answer.
all
Let me
playing
Google
at?
this. Yeah.
Where are we all playing at?
It was through the NFL league, and it was through the high school.
Public school facility.
All right, Daryl.
My tax dollars pay for that
We'll put the bill in the
facility.
mail. Yeah.
No, I'm sure they rent those things.
Yes, we do.
Everybody can rent.
We pay to
whatever.
have the lights on.
and
As
that's
the whole thing.
awesome. and there's more kids participating than that.
Yes, yes.
And the parents would rather their kids participate in that than play at the high school.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
All right, we'll end on the host final thought. What's one lesson from teaching and coaching that shapes your view on education?
It's not black or white. It's never black or white. It's one of the things I've always loved about coaching, and I've loved about teaching history, is it's not this or that. When I coach players, they each come with certain skill set that they're good at. Find a place where they can succeed and excel to help the team. And then my classroom, if I have kids that are really good at writing, let's get them around students that aren't so good at writing so they can help them out. It's just like if I have kids that are in my class that aren't good at English, put them around kids that are bilingual that can help them out. And we don't do that enough.
No.
So it's not cookie cutter. And we have too many people making decisions that make it black or white. I'm not talking about skin color either. It's either this or it's either that, and it's not. Right. It's not that. It's there needs to be more flexibility. There has to be more flexibility. Let's find the gray area and let's find what's going to work for the most students. And when I say the most students, for those students that are actively engaged and want to do well, because there are some students that go to school, they just want to go get a job.
Yeah.
So let's develop programs to where they can get their diploma, not GED, get their diploma and get out.
Yep.
Because they cause problems in the school. 100%.
Yeah, and like I say all the time, school's not for everybody. Same thing with universities. College is not for everybody. Bring back trade schools.
We have a kid that's fixing to graduate from Seguin, and there's some issues at home that I've learned from his teacher. He just wants to get out and work. So he just puts his nose down. He comes to school. He doesn't get in any trouble. He doesn't interact with a lot of people because he just wants to graduate. He already has a job lined up.
Nice.
Yep.
Yeah, and that's what we need to do. But we don't want to cater to these things.
Square peg, round hole.
Well,
Exactly.
next time I say we pick up on some of these student comments.
Yes, some of them
I
are
think
so
that'd be a good place to pick up because
gut-wrenching.
we have over 100
That's
at
one of my
least,
kids.
almost 200 probably.
Yes.
Yeah, I
And
think
I
that would
think
be
it'd
a
be
great
really
exercise
interesting.
to just go through them and
Yes,
can we
and
relate?
get
Do we have
feedback on
commentary?
Yeah, and discuss them.
I'll know who most of them are.
Yeah. Ugh.
So
Like I know who
that'll
said
be
that.
something to look forward to.
Fox is
Yeah.
just a real jerk. Like, how do you feel about that, Daryl?
You're right.
Accurate.
I use my powers for good though.
By
Try
design.